Tonight on the all-night drive-in picture show.
Thank you very much, Captain. And thank you for the watch.
And you, McQuade.
Drink, Captain.
At my office in 10 minutes.
And then you, McQuade.
Then,
The thing they left when they did. I was getting really mad.
I know, that's why I ran them off before you really got riled.
You know, you can only let these types go so far. Walk soft and carry a big stick. That's always been my motto.
Man's gotta have a model, Charlie.
and now here are your projectionists, the extra butter brothers themselves, Ryan Mason and Charles Wood.
Welcome to the all-night drive-in picture show. My name is Ryan. That's Charles.
Hi.
Hi. How you been, buddy?
Okay, how are you doing?
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Glad to be back in the booth.
The shack?
Back in the shack, a.k.a. the closet. Well, tonight we have a double feature of Chuck Norris movies.
Oh, man.
Ooh-wee.
And it's gonna be brutal. I mean...
Yeah. This is like a documentary on the logging industry because he's so boring.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough. We've actually met this man in person.
Oh, that's true. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. He was promoting the Karate Kid ripoff Sidekicks.
That's
At
right.
our local General Cinema when it was open.
Yeah.
We went and met the little bastard, and wow, he's tiny.
He's very small. I was surprised.
He's a small fella. Yeah.
He had his little remnants of his pancake makeup on from the TV news interview. And
Right.
we were talking about this a few weeks ago. I remember saying something about Bruce Lee, and he kind of had this look on his face like, oh, fuck you, man, you know?
Yeah.
But
if I recall correctly, you said, man, this guy makes movies, and he knew Bruce Lee.
not like he's one of the greatest martial artists alive, but wow, you're shorter than I thought, and you knew Bruce Lee.
If I recall, he's kind of like, yeah, sure did. Yeah.
Well, and I think though there was a woman right in front of us in line to meet him who had a picture of him and Bruce Lee and asked him about Bruce Lee. So I bet this poor bastard just had to deal with that all the time.
He probably gets it all the time. Yeah.
I think if I met him nowadays, I would have more questions about his hair plugs and everything than I would Bruce Lee because there are good biographies now and stuff. So
what's with the raccoon pelt on your head there, pal?
Yeah, right. He went into the hair plugs people and was like, give me the Davy Crockett.
Yes.
But one thing that I noticed when looking around, to do research for this episode, there isn't a biography about him, really. That's not him writing some inspirational horseshit revisionist history about himself, which I found very surprising. I thought there'd be at least one that wasn't written by him, kind of like Matthew Powley's book about Bruce Lee, but there isn't. I was really shocked.
Yeah.
I thought somebody needs to do that. And then I watched these movies again and I was like, no, they don't. It's
Maybe
okay.
somebody who writes about, mixed martial arts or something covering his karate career before he became a quote unquote actor.
Yeah. Of course, tonight our two movies are Lone Wolf McQuade and Silent Rage.
Yes.
And for those, of you Chuck heads out there, they're not in chronological order. We're going backwards, but I feel like Silent Rage is kind of more of the midnight movie.
Yeah.
That we would show here at the drive-in. So
it's a better movie of the two, in my opinion, but we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a low bar. It's like being the tallest kid in kindergarten, but
right. Exactly.
Still going to lose at dodgeball. You're still going to get dunked on. So
yeah. A quick story about Chuck Norris. When we met him, or at least I got an autographed 8x10 black and white photo of him. And I think it was probably from Missing in Action era, something like that,
Yeah.
So years later, I get married, and my mother-in-law has an apartment, and on the apartment, on her wall in her living room, she's got a cluster of like 8x10 photos of the family. And so my sister-in-law, I had run across the photo cleaning out the closet, and she was staying with us for a little bit while she was in town. And so I took it out and I showed it to her, and she says, "Can I borrow this?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So she takes it over to her mom's house and replaces one of the photos in the 8x10 frame on the wall, like smack in the middle of the wall. You can't miss it. And her mother didn't see that for months. It's a black and white autographed photo. And she's normally a very observant lady. You know,
Yeah.
she notices a lot.
Yeah.
Never saw it in her own apartment on the focal point of the wall.
Oh my God. That's great.
And if she did see it, maybe she thought that's exactly where that belongs, you know, and never said a word about it. So,
Right.
who knows?
Maybe she had a shrine in her closet to Chuck Norris, and she thought, well, you know, if people want to clown, like,
To this day, I never got that photo back, so I'm going to assume that it's up somewhere in the house still. I don't know.
yeah, right.
Well,
Oh, my
you ready to
God.
get going?
Yeah, let's move on. We're starting off with Lone Wolf McQuade. Attention patrons. The movies discussed on this podcast will be spoiled from start to finish. If you wish to experience these cinematic gems visually, please do so before continuing with this episode. We will be right here when you return. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.
And now, please enjoy our featured presentation.
When I was a kid, every night, my local video store would put this life-size cardboard promo standee of Clint Eastwood from Tightrope under one lone light in their front door because they didn't have a security system. So every night when we drove by, it would look like Clint Eastwood himself was guarding the superior video. That cardboard standee is a better version of Clint Eastwood than Chuck Norris is in this film. This is Lone Wolf McQuade.
When you're the best, you do things with style. J.J. McQuade is the best. He's a lone wolf lawman in the Lone Star State.
Your record is unrivaled, but my kind of ranger is a model citizen, pillar in the community, goes to church, he lives clean, he's got a loving wife and kids. Your lone wolf attitude is gonna change.
Even a wolf has his weaknesses. And a powerful enemy. But even the best can't always do it alone.
Something to remember you by.
Ranger, meet your new partner.
It's going to be an honor working with you, Ranger McQuade.
I think you know Agent Jackson.
Looks like somebody doesn't like you, McQuade.
I'll make a few enemies here and there.
Yeah? So do I.
So now the wolf has a wolf pack. Lone Wolf McQuade, starring Chuck Norris, David Carradine, Barbara Carrera, and Leon Isaac Kennedy.
The movie begins with a group of wrestlers driving horses through a canyon. A police copter and a team of Smokies are lining up to stop this equestrian larceny. Atop a canyon wall, grimy Texas Ranger J.J. McQuade, that old tree stump Chuck Norris, watches all the action through a gun scope, and places rocks on the ground, making a plan for himself that he will not follow through on.
Right.
Hey, yeah, okay, big rock, go here. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
This is El Jefe. Okay. As the cops descend on the scene, JJ goes to his dirty-ass blazer and grabs his rifle and a green combat vest. He loads his rifle and trains his sights on the ringleader, Jefe, played by Jorge Cervera Jr.
Jefe.
The cops call out to the wrestlers through a bullhorn, and the thieves fire on the fuzz. An all-out gunfight ensues, with the wrestlers quickly forcing the outnumbered cops to surrender. The cops are lined up on their knees. Jefe raises his machete to strike one of the cops when JJ fires, blasting open the hood of a nearby pickup. Jefe is all like, "What the hell?" as JJ fires another shot, hitting another truck and setting it ablaze. The bad guy says, "You are hurting my cars, pendejo. Why you do that?" Wow, I was not going to do the accent, so I think I strayed towards it, but we'll stay away from it.
Why you do that?
Why you do that? Why you do that?
You're hurting my cars, pendejo.
You're hurting my cars. Don't hurt my trucks, sir.
Do not hurt my trucks.
JJ announces himself and tells them not to move. Part of the plan, I guess.
Right.
Jefe wants JJ to stand up so he can see them, so the ranger obliges and one of the wrestlers fires his Uzi at JJ. The rounds ricochet off the ground in front of the ranger, raising a cloud of dust. JJ calmly returns fire, killing the shooter. Jefe's not as mad about that, but...
Yeah.
In retaliation, Jefe executes one of the cops and then grabs a young cop named Ko, played by Robert Beltran, who listeners of this show will know from Night of the Comet.
Episode 1, son.
Was that? That wasn't episode 1.
Wasn't it?
Oh.
I thought episode 1 was that and another movie. Start over.
Chopping Mall was the other movie, right? No, that was...
No.
Oh, fuck.
Dawn
Just
of the
go
Dead.
look it up. Anyway, Jefe grabs KO and puts a gun to his head. Jefe tells JJ to come down and face him, and one of the thieves warns Jefe that no one has ever killed a Texas Ranger and lived to tell about it. But Jefe scoffs. He's hurt my trucks, and he shot Bob.
Yeah.
JJ descends the mountain like Moses in a cowboy hat. As soon as he enters the snake pit, he is surrounded by Jefe and his band of misfits. Suddenly, kick! And another kick! JJ knocks Jefe's teeth out, grabs the Uzi, and then opens fire, taking out the entire gang.
Naturally.
JJ walks Jefe to a squad car, and Jefe's cussing in Spanish the whole way because a Texas Ranger once kicked Jefe's father's teeth out, and now Jefe's teeth have been kicked out by a Texas Ranger like father, like son.
That's correct, yeah.
So...
First of all, great score here. Amazing score, actually. I really love the score.
The score's fantastic.
It's obviously a ripoff of a lot of Morricone stuff, which, you come to expect in movies like this. But
we're going to do a little head-to-head at the end. I thought of this today, actually, and I got one head-to-head between pieces of the score from this and the score from another Morricone movie. So we'll do that at the end.
Sweet. The score is so good here that it actually distracts from the movie. Like it's, it's like, man, that's a great score. I don't give a shit what's going on screen. Man, listen to that.
It elevates the movie and then surpasses it.
Yeah. Bill Chuck hits the I'm a badass moment pretty early on in this one too, because he single-handedly takes out the entire gang with all the other cops on the ground in execution position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Well, and the thing, too, is that, like, he gets the Uzi, and, like, a couple of guys are just getting on a horse like, fuck this shit, and riding away, and he shoots them, so you get the old stuntman horsefall thing.
Of course.
Bunch of other dudes are just standing there.
Yeah.
Like, they're just standing there, and he just, like, shoots them all, and it's kind of like, okay, well, this looks like one of your, group fights where everybody takes their turn.
Right.
It's just...
Which we'll see in Silent Rage.
Yeah, exactly. It's just totally ridiculous,
Yeah.
But, I mean, Chuck Norris is an amazing actor, so he's very emotive in this scene.
That's right. He keeps the same face the entire scene. Yeah. And that look on his face is something to the effect of, I think I have to take a shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I do.
He's a badass in this movie if you are younger than 25 and or do keg stands every fucking weekend of your life.
Exactly.
Like if you're post 25 and you're a guy and you do keg stands every weekend, then this is probably a pretty badass movie.
Sure.
And you've never seen a James Bond movie, you've never seen a Dirty Harry movie, you've never seen a spaghetti western. But they try to merge all this stuff together, and I think the score does it all really well. I mean, the score does the Dirty Harry thing, spaghetti western, the James Bond thing, and we'll talk about that stuff as we get to it. But I agree with you. I mean, whenever I think of this movie, the absolute first thing I think of is the score. The second thing I think of is L.Q. Jones, and the third thing I think of is David Carradine.
It's somewhere in that top 10 might be Chuck Norris.
Well, yeah, I think he's like number 12.
Number 12? Oh, okay.
I
ranked him a little too high, I guess.
Yeah. You're giving that kid way too much credit.
Oh, yeah.
So we go on. JJ arrives late to a retirement ceremony for his fellow ranger and possibly his only friend, Dakota, played by the fantastic L.Q. Jones. JJ is filthy, covered in canyon dust, and his boss, Captain Tyler, played by the equally incredible R.G. Armstrong, isn't the least bit happy about it. Cap tells Dakota that he won't miss him and tells JJ to get into his office post-haste.
Post-haste!
Now, for almost a full 2 minutes, this is a bit of hyperbole on the part of our writer. It's more like 30 seconds, but it feels like fucking 2 minutes.
It feels like every bit of 2 minutes, yeah.
We watch JJ walk up a staircase, flirt with a female because he is a goddamn red-blooded American man.
Goddamn right he is.
And get a drink of water before finally making his way into Tyler's office. And Tyler's in the shitter, but the verbal abuse against JJ begins before the captain flushes the toilet.
You think you're pretty damn good, don't you, McQuade? Well, in case you didn't know it, there's a lot more to being a Texas Ranger than making bust. You gotta look good doing it. Style. The best always have style. I said, sit down.
I'll stand, Captain.
Now, in terms of unassisted felony arrests, I admit your record is unrivaled. But my kind of ranger is a model citizen, pillar in the community. He goes to church. He lives clean. And he's got a loving wife and kids. Read it. It's an editorial by the senator who happens to approve our annual budget. I quote, Ranger J.J. McQuade is a walking symbol of the brutal, uncooperative, obsolete, and discriminatory nature of the Rangers today. Unquote. Well, your lone wolf attitude is going to change. You're going to start cooperating with the state and federal agencies. Understand? Come in.
You wanted to see me, Captain?
Yes. Ranger, meet your new partner, Deputy Arcadio Ramos.
Arcadio. You can just call me K.O.
You gotta be kidding.
It's gonna be an honor working with you, Ranger McQuade.
Forget it, kid. I work alone.
Where'd you get that piece?
That's what I'm gonna find out.
Ranger?
Okay, so cowboy shit kicker badass who kills the bad guys with impunity. Check.
Check.
Chronically late maverick who drinks at official ceremonies and falls asleep in the middle of them. Check.
That's 2.
Hated by his boss because he's a lone wolf. Ding ding on the word of the day because that is also the title of this motherfucking movie, Lone Wolf McQuade. And he doesn't hold up the Ranger image. Check.
Trifecta.
And he refuses to be paired up with a new partner In this case, KO, as you heard from the film's opening, because I work alone, kid. Now,
right.
If you have your Clint Eastwood movie trope bingo cards out at home, you're doing pretty fucking well so far if you got the right card, okay?
You are. Take a drink.
Now, you don't have to spell out, you don't get to spell out bingo, you have to spell out Eastwood. That's the rub. So
you'll hit it within about 20 minutes of this movie, so you're all right.
Yeah.
You're all right.
Incidentally, I do think this is the first time that Chuck Norris actually drank beer on screen. I think that was like a big deal at the time because he'd never drank beer before. I think this was the first movie.
He's so wholesome.
Yeah, well, he's one of those guys that after a certain point, like probably after Slaughter in San Francisco, which was in the mid-late 70s, which he played a bad guy. It was like a movie from China, I think, or Hong Kong. He decided that he only wanted to play good guys. And he's one of those people that does the typical self-aggrandizing horse shit of like, I set out to be a hero. Which I think is kind of why most of his stuff just sucks, you know?
Right.
Because if you set out to be a hero rather than just being good at the thing that you do, then I feel like you always fall short with the thing that you do because you're just kind of doing it. Bill Goldberg. Anyway, I've already expressed my love for L.Q. Jones and R.G. Armstrong, but I'll say it again here. Both Sam Peckinpah alumni.
Yeah.
They make the movie feel familiar in a good way.
Right.
Whereas there's so much in this movie that feels familiar in a really bad way. You know? So I like it.
Like every Chuck Norris movie playing out on screen in front of us.
Yeah. Every time the star is on screen. I mean, the best thing that they did for Chuck Norris was put a bunch of fucking grime and a beard and dye his hair.
Right.
That's what makes him interesting is that he's just dirty all the time.
Right.
So, because he doesn't, the guy doesn't have the quiet charisma of Clint Eastwood.
No.
So whenever he delivers a line, it's kind of like, I work alone, kid. I mean, the growl that I gave it when I was imitating Chuck Norris was not even an imitation of Chuck Norris because, I mean, you heard him. He sounds like a puppet version of Clint Eastwood, He
does. So vanilla.
Yeah, he really is. But I do think that, as we'll see in Silent Rage as well, and it's less effective in Silent Rage, but in this movie, he's surrounded with good actors, at least for the first half of the film.
Right.
To the point that it almost makes the movie passable if you can get by all the other stuff that's going on. But that shit's really hard to get past. So anyway...
You don't as much get past as you do wade through it.
Yeah. Okay, so elsewhere, a plane lands on a dirt road. Two Cuban men arrive and meet Raleigh Wilkes, played by David Carradine, a cigar-smoking arms dealer in a child's V-neck sweater and a beige members-only jacket. These fellers have a briefcase full of cash to buy an arsenal of weapons from Wilkes. However, these no-good SOBs pull an okey-doke on him and draw their guns, demanding free weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with a sweet-ass spin kick, Wilkes knocks the gun out of the boss's hand, and then Wilkes' goons appear and cut down the Cubans with machine guns. And that is the introduction to the main bad guy, and David Carradine is truly great in this movie.
He is.
The perfect casting. He's serpentine, just like the character is, and his style is kind of vaguely a Cobra style of martial arts.
Just smarmy as hell. Oh, God.
He is. And we're going to talk about this later, but like even his leitmotif, his musical theme in the score resembles a James Bond theme. And so he and Falcone, who's the other bad guy we'll meet later, both are versions of Bond villains, basically.
Yeah.
So back to JJ's house. KO shows up and is greeted by JJ's snarling pet wolf.
He has a pet wolf. Mm-hmm.
He's a lone wolf, and he has a pet wolf.
That wolf is also lone.
Well, he's not alone because he's got JJ McQuade. Like, JJ McQuade is not a lone wolf because he has a wolf, and the pet wolf is also not a lone wolf because he has JJ McQuade.
Who's the lone wolf?
Well, they're two wolves. They're two lone wolves, but when they're together, they're not lone, so it's just two wolves.
They're a wolf pack.
Well, I think you need one more to be a pack, right? Is it? I don't know how that works.
I don't either.
I think when they're each apart, they're lone wolves.
Okay.
And then if there were another one in with them, they would be a wolf pack, at least one more. But I think just the two of them, they're just wolfies. They're just wolfies.
It'd be just like running buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like the My Little Pony people, the bronies, like they're like wolfies. What's up, Wolfie? You know, that kind of thing.
I would love to see Chuck Norris dressed up like a wolf. Even though he's got a pelt on his head like we discussed earlier. So.
He probably would do a better job acting if he did that.
That's true.
So yeah, KO shows up at JJ's house. He's greeted by the snarling pet wolf. The deputy runs into JJ's dump, which he dubs a piss house, which truer words are never spoken. It's adorned with wall-to-wall taxidermy, guns, and American flags, damn it. JJ emerges from another room and puts a gun in KO's face. KO is there to pick up his partner, but JJ informs him that he doesn't do that partner crap. But as we'll say here, because we don't pull any punches, he doesn't do that partner shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's a goddamn lone wolf, but as we've established, he's got a pet wolf, so he's kind of a wolfie when he's at home.
Yeah, it's true.
KO tries to argue, so JJ puts a bullet in his own ceiling, and KO hightails it to his car with the pet wolf on his heels. Then we watch along with KO as he spies on JJ during target practice. Yes, slow motion target practice.
Of course.
JJ cycles through a couple of guns and rolls in the dirt and hits the wooden dummy target every single time because he's a rootin' tootin' Yosemite Sam type son of a bitch, you see. And he does it all in slow motion, so it's even more amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Later, as JJ drives the desert road, KO pulls up behind him and tries to apologize over the CB for rolling up on him earlier. But JJ outruns him by flipping a Knight Rider switch on his dash and blasting away with a nitrous booster.
Yeah.
Because it's the 80s. We get to see the inside of the engine as the belt rolls faster and you get the whoop, 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 whoop. It's really awesome.
Oh, God.
That sound is the fourth thing I think of when I think of this movie.
The wheezing sound of nitrous, yes.
Yeah.
Well, JJ's definitely a stereotypical hillbilly redneck with a badge in this one, with his pet wolf and his taxidermy and his cache of weapons. Oh, God. And oh, God. He's got his lifted SUV with his nitrous booster.
I love it. Dirty. He's been mudding.
This guy just so desperately wants to be a modern version of the man with no name. It's disgusting.
But he is instead the man with no game.
Oh.
See, because he can't act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the jokes.
Time for me to cash out yet? Get my check, please.
Tip her well. She's got to work a whole shift listening to this shit. But like J.J. McQuade is like if your local bait shop was a person and had a perpetually drunk younger brother, like the drunk younger brother, that's J.J. McQuade.
Yeah.
It's not the bait shop. So
if your local bait shop was a person. Oh, fantastic.
I miss you, Ralph. I'll be in soon. Now, we got to check our Eastwood bingo cards here, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a .357 Magnum showing up here and the Dirty Harry shot of JJ pointing the gun at KO, you know, that shot from the side, you know, a little bit to the front, and Norris delivering his lines in a low whispering growl like Eastwood. So I think we're going to have an Eastwood in no time. I kind of feel it.
I'm already getting close on mine.
But hell, you could even almost draw a line from the target practice here to the Outlaw Josie Wales or Magnum Force. Like they have those scenes in Clint Eastwood movies. But here the target practice is just gratuitous and well, kind of phallic because he uses the shotgun like a big old cowboy dick, you know. He's looking at that thing around from his crotch, you know.
Right.
But in the other movies, the target practice actually moves the story forward. In this movie, it just doesn't. I mean,
it's just look what I can do. Look what I can do.
Yeah, and then when he gets hurt later on, he's like, "Oh, I can't do it no more," you know. But you know,
right.
So JJ arrives at his ex-wife Molly's house and is greeted by his daughter Sally. Molly is played by Sharon Farrell, And Sally is played by Dana Kimmel. JJ appears to have a great relationship with both women. Molly breaks the news to him that she has a new job in Las Cruces, and she and Sally are moving. He doesn't take that news well, but she's made up her mind. You can't tell if he's taken the news well or not because he just goes, Las Cruces? Like somebody's
Where's
just asking.
that?
Yeah, somebody's asking him to do a math problem. Then Sally's boyfriend, Bobby Drew, played by Robert Jordan, shows up in his GTO.
Yeah.
He's in full military dress and addresses JJ as Ranger and says he's heard all about him. JJ smirks and shakes his hand, making that third face of Chuck Norris, which is somewhere between I'm pissing my pants and I'm kind of proud of you for being my daughter's boyfriend.
Right. Really, his eyes don't change. He just kind of curls his lip a little bit.
It's like every fucking scene in this movie, his mouth looks like he's just come from a dental operation.
Yeah.
He hardly ever smiles, you know. So JJ and Sally meet up with Dakota at a horse park. Sally rides a horse while Dakota and JJ ogle a rider named Lola Richardson, played by Barbara Carrera, the Italian widow of a friend of Dakota's or of JJ's, or is it?
I think Dakota knew him.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah.
Dakota talks about him like he knew him. So
yeah, maybe. Okay. He's a really popular rich motherfucker, but he's dead, and Lola is very much alive and on horseback. Dakota asked JJ if he would like to, quote, bite into that, develop lockjaw, and be dragged to death, unquote. Now,
all right.
I will admit that LQ Jones delivers this line much better than I did, but still, holy shit, right? Like,
right.
Are we really doing this right now, Mr. Jones?
The question is, she's on horseback during the scene, so is he talking about her or the horse? I mean,
oh, well, I don't...
Talking about getting dragged to death, horse could do that.
I don't want to get into Texas Ranger erotica, please. I don't. I got enough on my plate.
Right.
So, while the boys ogle this woman, Wilkes and a man named Falcone, played by Daniel Frischman, watch them from one of the racing suites. A truck backfires and spooks Sally's horse. It takes off running out of control, and Sally is petrified. Lola catches up with Sally and grabs the reins of the horse, slowing it to a stop. JJ and Sally thank her. JJ introduces himself to her, but she already knows this infamous Texas Ranger. It's then that Wilkes arrives in a Mercedes with a vanity plate that says Carate, spelled with a C. That's the stuff.
That is the stuff.
This is Ronnie Wilkes, my late husband's partner, Ranger McQuade.
Now you're my partner. I understand you're very good with your hands and feet.
Pretty good.
Ronnie was all-European karate champion.
Is that right?
Karate with a C.
Ranger Brown, Sally, Ranger McQuade, it was especially nice. Oh, by the way, Rawley's giving a little martial arts display over by the racetrack.
Just a little exhibition.
Why don't you gentlemen drop on by?
I don't think we can really make it.
Be our pleasure, ma'am.
Good.
JJ's all like, hell yeah, I'm good with my hands and feet. I can play piano man with my toes while drinking a beer and pet my wolf, bitch. He's like, I hear you're good with your hands and feet. Fuck yes, I am.
Wait till you see what I can do.
Wait till you see what I can do with my feet.
Yeah.
Just ask my ex-wife.
Right. That's why she's my ex now.
Yeah, right. She can keep up with me. During this whole meet and greet, Wilkes stares and smirks smugly at JJ, who returns a patented blank wooden mug. Wilkes walks Lola to the car and kisses her so that JJ knows he's not the only heterosexual male in town.
That's right.
Now, before the Karate with a C exhibition can begin, there's some country dancing and barbecue because it's Texas, you stupid bastards.
That's right.
JJ and Lola run into each other at a bar. They stand together and watch Wilkes, who enters the ring smoking a cigar like a fucking gangster, and puts down 3 opponents in quick fashion. Afterward, Wilkes calls out JJ from the ring and wants to fight him for a wager. JJ refuses, saying he doesn't fight for money, which is met with boos and disappointment from the audience. Post-martial arts, karate with a C, exhibition, there's more country dancing and barbecue because it is still Texas, you dumb bastards. Now...
You stupid sons of bitches. Every one of you.
All 12 of you. So KO dances with a lady and is confronted by a cowboy who says she better not be dancing with no greaser. And then he basically calls KO a greaser, and KO punches him, and this big cowboy no-sells it. And a fight breaks out, with KO being held by 2 other cowboy toughs while cowboy number 1 lays into him. Dakota jumps in but gets knocked off quickly. And then here comes old JJ, the karate, with a C, cowboy. He takes on all comers and makes short order of them all. Then Wilkes wants to dance. Well, not country dance, but fight with a C. Before that can happen, though, Lola steps in between them and apologizes to JJ and chews out an unfazed Wilkes. And then she turns to the band and says, "Music, play." That is the 5th thing that I think about when I think about this movie.
Play something with balls.
Oh, God. From a nearby office, Falcone watches the scene through binoculars and cackles. Now, we didn't describe Falcone when we saw him just a little bit ago because it's too quick of a scene, but he is a little man in a wheelchair. And he watches the scene through binoculars, cackles, and then throws the binoculars to his huge bodyguard as he wheels up this ramp behind his big old desk. Now, as they're leaving the party, KO thanks JJ for saving his ass yet again, and JJ seems to be warming up to the kid. Lola approaches JJ and grabs him by the arm, saying they need a change of scenery. She loads him into her Rolls Royce and they leave for a bar.
So this is their first encounter and things are going to escalate very quickly.
Yeah.
Shockingly fast, actually. Yeah. Back to Carradine, man. He plays that smarmy villain so well.
He really does.
Smoking the stogie in the ring before his match, that was a nice touch. And then as soon as the fight's over with, he puts the stogie right back in his mouth again like he never missed a beat.
His guy, the guy that actually ends up attacking KO later on, he's the guy who comes in and puts it daintily back into Wilkes' mouth. I'm like, oh, it's perfect. Just perfect.
There you go, boss.
And at that point, Wilkes kind of whispers to him, and something's coming up later on. But the thing that I really realized this time was that we have J.J. McQuade, who hardly ever changes clothes in this movie, right?
Right.
And yet, between the time when the horse got spooked and this little thing, which we're meant to think that these events, the horse getting spooked and this martial arts thing and the dance and the barbecue, are in relatively close proximity time-wise to one another, he's changed shirts.
Yeah.
He's changed from the yellow thing to a denim, he wears these old school bibbed cowboy shirts, with the buttons all the way around. I don't know what you call those. So he has changed clothes. Then later on, when he should have changed clothes, his clothes magically get clean. So we'll talk about it later.
Sure.
Okay, so JJ and Lola go to this bar. Once inside the bar, of course, everyone stops to mean mug the Ranger when, once they get in there. No sooner do they sit down when a biker asks Lola for a kiss. Perfectly normal thing, I guess, to happen. She clocks this asshole with a hard right, and JJ says it's time to go, so they start to leave, and this biker gets up and he charges the couple with a pool cue as they reach the front door, and JJ sends him sprawling over the billiard table with a kick and a back fist. Karate.
With a C.
Because he's cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the European guy spells it with a C because I think that's how you spell it in France.
You got it all figured out.
I'm really starting to find the key to Lone Wolf McQuade.
That's right.
So out in the desert at a necking spot, Bobby and Sally witness some cops getting gunned down at a traffic stop. There's like this, what is it? It's like almost like a roadblock.
Yeah.
And these army trucks pull up and these cops get gunned down when they stop the trucks. Sally and Bobby run back to the car to leave, but before they can take off, a car appears out of nowhere carrying some of Wilkes' goons. A goon gets out and guns down Bobby as Sally screams in horror. The goon then gets back in his car and T-bones Bobby's GTO and sends Sally and the car rolling down the hill.
The goons being there was so weird.
It made no sense.
Yeah, it made no sense. They just appear out of nowhere. And it's one of those things, too, that when they flip on the car lights, you wonder how Sally and Bobby never saw them in the first place.
Because it's right where they were, right?
Right. It's like maybe 20 feet away from them. And they're outside the car, yucking it up and, acting like a couple of kids, and this car's right there. How can they not see that?
Right.
That being said, this was a kind of a cool and shocking scene because he killed the boyfriend right off the bat, which we've met the kid once. Now he's dead. And then they hurt the star of the show's daughter. So,
right.
Even if she was just merely collateral damage there still, they're attempting to take out the man's daughter.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you don't really introduce a cherished daughter in a cookie cutter movie like this unless she's going to be put in peril and serve as a motivation for the hero at some point.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the way they use Sally in the movie is that they do this like twice.
Yeah.
It's like they put this girl in the hospital, she gets out, and they're like, oh, we got to use the girl again. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really work. And you're right. Like the goons being there made absolutely zero sense.
None.
I mean, it was right where they were laying down in the desert, not even 3 minutes previously. So,
right.
And there's no logistical purpose for the car to be up there.
Right.
If there were a logistical purpose for that goon car to be up there, it would have been up there before they got up there.
And let's be realistic. You and I, we've been on dates with girls. We've parked. You know your surroundings when you park somewhere, especially if you're necking because you don't want cops to show up and give you a hard time. You know your surroundings.
I did get caught out behind a Gold's Gym once. So, but yeah, I take your point. I mean, especially if you're outside the car.
Right.
Which they were for most of this scene. So if you are outside the car, yeah, you take stock of what's going on around you, especially if you're in the desert, for Christ's sakes, man, there are things out there that'll bite your butthole. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've been in the desert, I've had some face-to-faces with rattlesnakes. Like those things will, get right up in there. So,
do they now? You sound like you speak from experience here.
Close calls. So elsewhere, Lola drops JJ off at his truck and they kiss goodnight and she stares longingly into the void of his hollow black hole eyes. And he looks at her as if he were a mannequin in a Christmas window display.
Yep.
As he's leaving, he gets a call on his radio about the shooting and the accident. When he is informed that his daughter was involved, he hits the nitrous and his truck wheezes down the road.
Yes.
Once at the hospital, JJ's daughter is awake and alert, but she cries over her fallen boyfriend. JJ's eyes glaze over, his vacant eyes. Sorry. I got lost in them for a second.
It's easy to do. It's like an empty hallway.
Yeah, it's just like a liminal space. There's a humdinger. Daylight comes and KO is at the scene of the crime. Bobby's GTO is taken away on a tow truck. The roof is opened like a tuna can. The FBI is taken over and we meet Agent Jackson, played by Leon Isaac Kennedy. Jackson glad hands JJ, but then immediately informs him that JJ no longer has jurisdiction, daughter or not. The stop involved armored cars being robbed. KO finds a page from one of the car's logbooks that reads Fort Nelson. JJ takes the page and heads back to the office. He calls the fort and asks about the contents of the trucks as he draws a pair of breasts on a picture of a woman in the newspaper, like an indigenous woman in the newspaper. So JJ's all class.
Mm-hmm.
He takes on a piss-poor attitude with this poor woman on the phone, and KO overhears the conversation. The woman's just like, basically, fuck off, pal. I don't have to tell you anything.
Yeah. I like how she says, he's like, let me speak to him. She's like, he's not here. Or is he? I don't know. I'm not sleeping with him.
Yeah, I know. As he hangs up, she's like, I don't know. I'm not sleeping with the fucking guy. So KO overhears this, JJ crashing and burning. He takes JJ back to his desk and hacks into the fort's database on his boss-ass computer with its monochrome green screen monitor.
Yeah.
The trucks were full of guns, everything from pistols to bazookas. KO earns JJ's respect and they go for a ride. They stake out a local garment factory, and JJ spots a known ne'er-do-well, Snow, played by the wonderful William Sanderson, who you may know as Deadwood's E.B. Farnham. Snow always has the dirt, so they pay him a visit. Now, instead of parking, like a gentleman, and going inside, like a gentleman, JJ crashes through the gates in his big-ass Boss Knight Rider blazer thing. Once inside, they are attacked by two goons, because if somebody's going to crash through your place of work, you're going to run at them with like a pipe or something, you know? You don't know what's happening, you know? It could be anything.
Unless you're me and you're thinking to yourself, I ain't dying for this place.
That's true. You might, yeah, that's true. I would duck into the bathroom and just hope nobody hears me crying.
Take what you want, fellas.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I help you load your car?
Yeah, exactly. It's all insured. So KO dispatches one of these goons, and JJ knocks the other into a slumber that resembles the finer moments of Chuck Norris's performance in this film, like real still and flat.
Mm-hmm.
They find Snow, and Snow and some goons fire shots at the cops, and Snow takes off on foot. He ends up driving away in a truck with JJ riding along on the tailgate, much in the same way that Kirby will in Silent Rage later on. Snow tries to shake JJ off the truck to no avail. He eventually crashes into a gas tanker. The tanker leaks gas all over the truck and then ignites in flames. JJ pulls Snow to safety before the truck and the tanker Hollywood explode.
Yes.
KO arrives in JJ's truck and they take Snow to Dakota's ranch. Dakota roughs up Snow and handcuffs him to a tree and begins the interrogation by shooting a few rounds from an Uzi in Snow's general direction. It's like real Law and Order horse shit.
Hey! Got something to say, pissant?
I know who you want. It's the Mexican mafia men, Falcone.
Emilio Falcone?
They're heisting guns everywhere. All they can get.
What are they going to do with all that hardware? I said, what are they going to do with all that hardware?
Shit! They fly them off to Mexico, to Central America, to terrorists and stuff. All over the place. I don't know. They gotta kill my son, man! God damn it! Please. Please, man, let me go. God damn it.
Well, you stay right there, boy. Don't you even breathe fast.
Thanks, Dakota. I figured you'd bring him around.
It has been my pleasure, JJ.
Hang on to him till I get back. I'm gonna clean up and pay a little visit to Senor Falcone.
Mm-hmm. What about me, Ranger?
Hold down the fort, partner.
Bueno.
Let's go having a little talk with our guest.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, man? I'm not scared of you.
I read somewhere that John Milius might have done some uncredited work on the screenplay, and that pretty much tracks because he was the guy who wrote the screenplay for Magnum Force we were talking about earlier. But this scene is it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
You know, I think partly because Sanderson is such a likable character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he says that they have his son, and it's kind of like, it's tough to watch. It's real kind of 80s Law and Order, Reaganite bullshit, you know?
Right.
And I really kind of feel like, you know, starting in the 70s, especially with like the Dirty Harry movies and stuff like that, this kind of thing was ramping up. But in the 1980s, people like Chuck Norris and Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of made an industry out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's one of those things where it's kind of infected our society to the point that it's infected politics. So you have these things of like, well, of course we can do enhanced interrogation, which is torture, because what if we have a terrorist who knows where a bomb is and when it's going to go off, or know when this terrorist attack is going to take place? It's like 24 type scenarios. And I think the roots of those things can be found in movies like this that were marginally popular in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And starred these big action stars who can't act for shit, but they're just put in these movies because people will go see them. And this is probably the only time I'll really get serious here, but I just feel like this scene is really important. And I think the important part of the scene is that we see KO's reaction to what's going on. And it's probably, as much as I like Robert Beltran, this is probably like the only good work he does in this movie for my money.
He's pretty one note.
He is. And, you know, here you see him when Dakota takes some shots at Snow and then starts interrogating him. KO, you can see this look on his face where he's just like, wait, this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's subtle, but it's there. But then as time goes on, they keep cutting back to KO periodically. And you see by the end of it, he's okay with it.
Right.
Because once JJ leaves, Dakota puts his arm around him and says, let's have another talk with this boy or whatever. And KO's like, well, you know, it's kind of like one of those things with the bully on the playground where it's like, well, he's not beating me up. So if he tells me to kick the kid that he's beaten up, then I'll just kick the kid. Right. You know?
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, it's not like they would necessarily do anything like that to KO, but if KO had stepped in, it might not have gone that well for him. But I do feel like that the bad apples in law enforcement, I think they've seen too many movies like this, just like terrible boxers and terrible mixed martial artists have seen too many Rocky movies.
Exactly.
Because the mixed martial artists are always like, hit me again, hit me again. I was like, well, what if that motherfucker knocks you out? You know, then you look like an idiot, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know. That scene really bothered me in a way that I'd never really realized before. But I think part of it is because LQ Jones as Dakota is so good, and so is Sanderson as Snow, and in this instance, Beltran, you know, and Chuck Norris was there too.
Right.
So JJ goes back to his dump to get cleaned up, and somehow Lola knows where JJ lives, and she's let herself in, and she's cleaning up the joint and has brought in a bunch of vitamins. And the cardinal sin that she's committed, she's thrown out his beer. And JJ is not happy about it. Because he's a red-blooded.
American males, American males, American males, American males, American males, American males, American males. When you say that I'm coming, better run for cover. Girls, you don't need a weekend lover. American males. If they want to talk to you, you better not listen. You might wind up in critical condition. American males.
American man who only drinks the beer called Pearl.
That's fucking weird.
She gets pissed at his reaction and leaves, but he realizes he hasn't had sex with her yet, so he runs out and apologizes. She says he needs fixing and starts to cry, and they embrace. They've known each other maybe 24 hours at this point.
If that.
So, wow, she would make a good life coach. Anyway, they make up and she turns the hose on him for some reason, and they have a water fight and end up kissing in a mud puddle.
What the fuck?
I know.
Seriously, what the fuck?
I have no idea.
Why does she turns the hose on him for no reason? Well, you know,
and think about where this scene is placed in this movie. He has just captured Snow. He has done the ever so urgent, almost torturous interrogation with Dakota.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to go get cleaned up and go get on Falcone because we got to find these weapons. And then he goes home and is just like, you're cleaning up my house? Wait, we should probably fuck in the mud. It doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense. It's like this detour that makes no sense. I would have more respect for this guy if he'd be like, I've come home to put on my cleanest dirty shirt and we're going to talk about this later, but I need you to get the fuck out. You know? Yeah. Something to that effect. But instead, he's like, hey, let's play, play and spray, or whatever. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's totally fucking ridiculous. So JJ returns to the horse track and he has finally changed clothes. Oh, wait, sorry. No, he didn't. He's in exactly the same shirt he was in the mud fucking scene, but the shirt is perfectly clean and dry now. As is he. He goes to Falcone's office and the guard won't let him in. JJ says his badge is his invitation, motherfucker. But the guard lays a hand on JJ and the ranger beats the piss out of him. Inside the office, Falcone sits in his chair. He is, by far, the hammiest character in the show.
It's not even a contest.
It's not. It's not. And he's great. He's really fun.
He's funny.
His suite is loaded with arcade games because he is a lucky little bastard.
Yes.
And JJ comes in with his gun drawn, but Falcone is also packing heat.
So, the Lone Wolf pays us a visit. As you can see, mine's bigger.
Mine's loaded.
Tell me, Ranger, do you like games?
I'm not here to discuss games, Falcone.
Damn! Then what brings you?
Guns.
Guns! You know, at one time, I had a great interest in guns.
Somebody tells me you still do.
And of course, you would like to believe him.
2 nights ago, several men were killed in an army convoy heist.
Yes, of course, I'm aware of these things. However, this certain party who is stealing these guns was once a close friend of mine. He might take it personally if I were to divulge details. He's a businessman, just like I am, and he... But why am I telling you all this? You will find these things out for yourself in good time. Meanwhile, I will enjoy watching the game.
It may be a game to you, Falcone. But if I find out you're playing, I'm gonna have your little ass.
Well, Ranger, it's been a pleasure having a chat with you, but I'm afraid I must go. Oh, and Ranger, the man you caught, Snow, I understand he won't live through the night. Adios now.
What's funny about this scene, well, everything's funny about it, but what's really funny about it is when he says, "I must go," you can hear the sound of his voice change because he's disappeared behind a rotating wall.
It's right behind his desk. Yeah.
And the wall, the opposite side of the wall looks exactly like the front side of the wall. So when he disappears, it's like nothing ever happened. It's corny as hell, but it's hilarious. It's also hilarious that he's listening to the Nutcracker Suite in the background.
It's just
the Nutcracker.
Yeah, it's just so weird. I mean, it's like it's not even so much weird. It's just dumb.
Yeah. Oh, it's real dumb. Yeah.
Like we said before, like we were talking about earlier, there is a certain amount of Bond villain in both Falcone and Wilkes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Carradine as Wilkes carries that image better than Frischman does as Falcone. But,
right.
You know, I think it's not all Frischman's fault. There's just so much thrown in here.
Right. Right.
Because you know that this was like some 45-year-old dude or 50-year-old dude going, "Hey, kids love video games. Let's have the bad guy have an arcade in his fucking office. That's genius, Bob. Let's do that." You know? It just, you know, it's like, okay.
It's also very, very kind of insulting that he's a little person, so they make him childlike.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't know if there's a correlation there or not, but it seems like there probably is.
Well, I think so, because, you know, when he points the gun at JJ at the beginning of the scene, he's like, "As you can see, mine's bigger," and JJ points his at his head and says, "Mine's loaded." Like, his gun is like some sort of big Western gun, or it might even be a 357 Magnum, but it's copper, so it doesn't look real, you know, or whatever.
Right.
So, I don't know. I think you're right. Like, I think they probably do try to kind of infantilize him a little bit because he's a little person, which is ridiculous, you know. But he's really good. Right. I mean, for what he's given to do, he's given this like broad strokes, you know, character, and he does a great job with it.
He just devours the scenery.
He really does. He really does, which is good because Chuck Norris might as well just start beeping and booping because he's basically as animated as an arcade machine in the scene, you know.
While Frischman's devouring the scenery, Norris is fasting.
Yeah, right. He's on a strict diet.
Yeah.
So JJ, after finding out that Snow won't make it through the night, JJ hits the nitrous again and hauls ass back to Dakota's. He tries to call ahead to Dakota through the CB, but the line is out of order. Meanwhile, Dakota and KO are playing penny ante poker while Snow is handcuffed to a chair. Goons descend on the house and bust through the front door. Dakota quickly puts a bullet in one, but takes a bullet in return. Wilkes has arrived and puts his foot on the neck of the fallen Dakota and kills him. He then turns an Uzi on Snow and fills him full of lead. KO is holed up in the kitchen shooting it out with a man outside. Now, Mr. Nitrous arrives and the goons have left, but for some reason they let KO live, and he sits mourning on a couch when JJ enters.
Well, that makes no sense at all, doesn't it?
That little thing of leaving him alive makes no sense, except that he's got to be there at the end for the big scene at the end, but he's not even necessary there. I mean, he is necessary there, but he's kind of not. I mean,
they could at least give him a hero scene where he chases him off.
Yeah.
You know, where he comes out firing, maybe he hits the main goon in the arm or something, and finally he's just like, okay, let's go. We'll come back to him later.
Yeah.
You know, at least give him a hero scene to give his character a little more depth.
Yeah, I mean, a solo hero scene, because he does get a little bit of a hero scene here in a minute with the botched raid that comes up here in a little while. But yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, you know, even if it's him shooting at them and then hiding and wounding one of the guys and they just got to get the hell out of there or whatever, something, but they don't give him anything. So,
I mean, so far, the only way he's proven his worth to Chuck Norris's character is that he hacked the computer.
Yeah.
You know, let him fend off the bad guys and actually have a hero moment, and maybe he'll earn a little more respect from him.
Well, exactly. And you know something too, like I kind of feel like they missed an opportunity with KO because he could probably be the guy that teaches JJ McQuade a lesson about what it means to be like a real law enforcement officer, to actually abide by the laws that you are supposedly sworn to uphold, you know?
Yeah.
He could have been a conscience character for JJ, but instead he's just the sidekick.
Right. Yeah.
So the other thing in this scene I do love, though, is how Dakota tries to cheat at poker while KO goes off into the kitchen to get a beer, and he's like looking at his cards, and Snow sees the whole thing, and then Dakota like points a gun at him and says, "Loose lips sink ships." So I love that one.
Right.
Jones just delivers it so perfectly. But now he's dead, and this movie is starting to swirl down the John.
Mm-hmm.
So JJ returns to the boss's office and finds Agent Jackson, and then a colonel, played by Tommy Ballard, and an ATF agent named Burnside, played by John Anderson.
Fitz, you better read this.
A federal indictment.
With your name on it. Maybe you don't realize you're dealing with international gun smugglers, butchers. They provide every damn subversive and terrorist organization in the world with our guns.
I can't stand by you on this one, Ranger.
Not only have you withheld evidence and harbored a key witness in a federal investigation, but you've caused the death of one good man and violated every jurisdictional clause in the book.
Ranger, I don't have any choice but to put you on probation. You'll take a mandatory vacation without pay until this matter can be cleared up through proper channels.
You want my star, Captain?
That won't be necessary. Not yet.
Well, this scene feels very familiar, like I've seen it in 100 different cop movies in the past. I mean, do you have a feeling he's going to save the day in the end?
Are we even watching the same movie? Like, I disagree completely. I think this will take a very interesting, surprising, high-quality artistic turn. I really have this feeling that this movie's really going to start.
Is that right?
Yeah, business is going to pick up in Lone Wolf McQuade here in a second.
Wow. Here I'm seeing predictability out the yin-yang, and you're going a totally different direction.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. It's going to suck. There's no, you can't get around it. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
JJ goes back home to find Lola napping on his bed. She wants to know what's wrong, but he's the strong, silent type. Pain don't hurt, and neither does grief. She kisses him, and he returns with a kiss that might be described as looking like a gorilla playing a kazoo.
Oh, spot on.
Later that night, JJ and Lola sleep. Two goons arrive and kill the wolf with a silenced machine gun. They open. I'm sorry, I said that really happily. That's awful. Like, they killed this poor fucking wolf that he's keeping as a pet. If this wolf had been in the wild, been able to hunt, he probably would have been able to defend himself. Maybe not.
Well, he really is a lone wolf now, isn't he?
Now he is a lone wolf because his wolfie's gone. Okay, so they kill the wolf. They open fire on JJ's bedroom window, and JJ grabs Lola and rolls her off the bed to safety. The goons retreat back to the car because they don't like killing anybody. They just like scaring people. So the car's driven by Wilkes, and these three bastards speed away. JJ chases after the goons and fires on them a few times. Then he comes back and sees his beloved wolf lying dead. He pounds the dirt, displaying much more sadness and emotion than he did for his buddy Dakota's death. Dogs, bro. We don't deserve them.
Oh, fuck you.
I'm telling you.
We don't deserve them. We don't deserve them. They're such precious baby angels. Yeah. Fuck off.
Watch my fur baby chase his tail. Dogs, bro. We don't deserve them.
He's my doggo, my pupper.
And now we've lost 7 listeners. So JJ picks up the wolf and carries him off, probably to bury him.
You know, one thing that doesn't really make sense to me, among many things that don't make sense to me in this movie, is that what point does it make to try to send a message to McQuade by shooting up his house and not killing him, just shooting up his house? It's like, do you really think that's going to stop him? I mean, you know what kind of a caliber of a person that he is, and that he's as crazy as the bad guy is.
Yeah.
What does sending a message do? Just go in there and kill him if you're going to kill him.
Right. And you know, the thing about it too is that going and doing this kind of thing to his house would only draw more heat to you as a criminal.
Right.
You know, I think what they try to do here, and they don't do it very well, but what they try to do is they try to hang this whole thing on Wilkes wanting to prove that he's a better man than J.J. McQuade. But they don't have enough scenes together, really, before this to establish that at all. And even so, that's a flimsy idea, you know? But like in this movie, it's the only thing I could even fucking think of that they would use as kind of a clothesline for why they do all this shit.
Yeah.
But most of the stuff I think happens here just because it was the 80s and we needed guns and we needed sex, although the sex in this movie is pretty tame. Even yet compared to Silent Rage later on.
Right.
I mean, when I was a 10-year-old kid seeing this movie, I was just like, oh, cool, you know, like they're shooting shit and there's karate and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then that little guy has a fucking arcade in his office. The kids love arcade games. It's genius. But
another case of one of those movies where when you're a kid, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you get older, you're like, you know what? I should revisit that. I loved that when I was a kid. And you watch it, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. What happened?
And then you're sad that you know all the lines to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the fact that I can recite dialogue from this movie if somebody says Lone Wolf McQuade, and I can say, welcome to my hacienda, Mr. McQuade, right off the bat.
Right.
You know, or I can whistle the score. Seeing it these last few times for this episode, I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. If I were in Japan, I would commit harakiri. I have been dishonored by this film. Chuck Norris, the bane of my existence. All right, let's get through this. The next day, JJ picks Sally up from the hospital. When he gets her home, she cries and says she doesn't want to move away and leave him. JJ then has one of his most emotional and poignant scenes in the entire film in which he tells his daughter that he doesn't want her to move away either, but her mother is just trying to do what's best for her. And anyway, he's going to be really dadgum busy killing bad guys and trying to get this taxidermy shop up and running as he plans for his early retirement, if those pesky laws and the mean old newspapers have anything to say about it. He tells her he's really just not going to have the time to devote to her as he navigates the waters of being a lone wolf without his wolf companion, effectively a half-wolfless existence. At this thought, he begins to cry, and Sally, being the dutiful, loving daughter, hugs his neck. She calls into her mother, who bounds out the door and gets into the Bronco, and they all have this big group hug and a good cry. Everybody knows this is the end of an era, and though their lives will never be the same, they will work together to find a way to remain a family at a distance. The score swells, and wait, no, actually JJ just wears that stupid blank Chuck Norris face as he mutters that he loves his daughter, and then he actually smiles a tiny bit as he waves to her mother, who has come out to meet Sally in the driveway. So
You painted a lovely picture that just wasn't there.
Oh, what this film could have been in my hands.
He shows no emotion. His daughter is weeping. Yeah. She's weeping.
I know.
And as a father of a daughter, when if she cries over the least little thing, I'm like, oh shit, what the hell? Okay, come on, baby, come on. You know, his daughter is weeping because she doesn't want to leave him, and he's just like,
You just can't. You can't budge him. You know, he's like the mysterious iron pole in the middle of New Delhi. You just can't budge him. You push on him, push on him. It just doesn't work.
He's like an Easter Island statue.
He really is, except not as emotive.
No. Good
totally
Lord.
Ridiculous. Later, JJ is the one cleaning out his stupid dump when Agent Jackson shows up. Jackson says he doesn't play by the rules either as JJ pitches bags of trash across his property willy-nilly. He's just moving it from the inside to the outside because none of it sparks joy for him. Jackson knows that the gun runners have a drop-off point somewhere in a 500-mile range in the desert. So, you know, might as well just play horseshoes. So they hop in a plane and fly over the area hoping to find that spot. They're almost ready to give up, but JJ sees a couple of Quonset hut-type buildings that aren't on the map, so they do a low flyby to check it out. Inside one of the buildings, the goons scurry around crates of military weapons, and later, JJ and KO return in JJ's truck, followed by another truck with Jackson, Burnside, and a couple others in tow. And Burnside is already tiring of the trip.
Wait! What is this? A damn goat trail?
If you want to turn back, that's fine by me.
Who the hell does that son of a bitch think he is?
That son of a bitch knows his country better than you know the warts on your wife's backside.
Well, why don't we all line up and kiss his ass?
I love that line. Why don't we just all line up and kiss his ass? This is another really dumb scene with Burnside griping the whole time, and his SUV gets caught on some rocks, so JJ doubles back and pushes him out of the rocks with the nitrous wagon.
Yeah, that's right, baby. That's right.
If this movie's anything, it's an ad for Big Nitrous if I've ever seen one.
It's true. Propaganda.
Yeah, whenever I hear the wheeze of the nitrous, it reminds me of Jackie Chan's car in Cannonball Run.
Except that car was clean.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
I mean, this is their city boy can't handle the country life scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the first of 2 desert trek scenes that are ripped right out of like every Western imaginable before this, which isn't bad on its face, but this movie is just so shameless about using these stolen ideas so fucking poorly that it's just regressive. It doesn't go anywhere, you know? It's just like
nowhere.
Now we have to trek through the desert. Don't worry, we're going to do that again later on because they have to do everything twice in this movie, just so you understand. Jesus Christ. JJ, KO, and the feds descend on the gun barracks under the dark of night. It's a whole goddamn operation they are running with a large crew and forklifts and shit. Burnside gets impatient and announces to the bad guys that the feds have arrived. He's quickly gunned down and a firefight ensues. JJ takes a bullet to the arm and tells KO to get the hell out of there, kid. JJ continues to fight with one arm, but is ultimately subdued by 3 men. Yes, 3 goddamn men.
3.
You didn't honestly think one man could possibly take a one-armed Chuck Norris down, did you? You fucking rubes. Sorry. Got a little emotional. A helicopter lands and out comes Wilkes and Lola. Wilkes starts kicking the shit out of JJ and Lola pleads for him to stop. He says he has a better idea and calls for a couple of goons to get JJ's truck and to get Lola out of there. KO watches from their weeds as the goons load JJ into his truck. JJ's vision is blurry and he passes out from the pain of the bullet, I guess. Wilkes takes JJ's ranger badge as a souvenir and then choppers out with Lola.
Like a boss.
A bulldozer shoves JJ's truck from behind into a pre-dug hole. Why is there a truck-sized grave already waiting? Who knows? They're like, hey, we might have to bury a fucking blazer out here. You don't know. This is the desert, man. This is the Texas desert. All kinds of shit happens out here.
You have no idea what's buried out here, son.
You have no idea.
Mm-mm. We always have a truck-sized grave ready to go because you don't know what's buried out here.
The bulldozer shovels dirt on top of the truck, burying the ranger alive. All right. It's time for the money shot.
Yeah, son.
Inside the cab, JJ wakes up. He flips on a light, cracks a beer that he has in his police vehicle because, and pours it over his head. I'm assuming to wake himself up. He drinks a little bit too, but none of it stays in his mouth. Head injuries. On the outside, KO comes out shooting against the goons, still on sight. JJ fires up the nitrous and rockets from the grave.
Yeah.
You can just see the fat cats at Big Nitrous lighting cigars with $100 bills after that scene. Boom.
Woo.
Afterward, JJ rolls out of his truck to the ground. KO begs him not to die. Don't die on me, damn it. And JJ wakes up calling for another beer.
Yeah.
In more resurrection news, Agent Jackson emerges, got shot. The snot-nosed rookie and the two bullet-riddled vets sit aside the Lazarus mobile, drinking cold ones as you do when you're a goddamn Texas Ranger. And a Fed. JJ is back home. I just got to keep going. I'm turning the nitrous on in my ribs. Just
yeah.
JJ is back home. His arm and ribs are taped up. It's like the next day. So he's out doing target practice as you do when you're injured and, you're suspended. He fires his long-barreled pistol at a target and screams in agony at the recoil. It hurts his little wrist so bad that he steps back and does a jump kick to a shed support rail and collapses the front end of the said shed because if we know anything about J.J. McQuade, it's that he will destroy his own domicile to prove to you how pissed off he is. It's a real man right there.
So firing a gun equals agony.
Right.
Jump kicking lumber, no sweat.
That's right, because all the injuries are from the waist up. It's all from the waist up. So JJ skulks back up to the house. On the front porch, he accidentally kicks his dead wolf's food bowl. He stares at the food bowl with all of the emotion that you would expect Chuck Norris to have between the words action and cut, which is none. Inside, JJ lays on the bed with Lola's necklace in his hands. Then he puts that down and picks up a picture of him, his ex-wife, and his daughter. Now this scene, he plays like Olivier. If Olivier was addicted to sedatives and was recovering from a night on the town with Peter O'Toole. Nah, fuck it. Forget it. What I'm saying is that his face remains totally blank. Like he stares at these things and says, I'm supposed to look at these things. Now.
Like I've seen check-in desk robots in Japanese hotels that show more feelings than this zombie.
Yes, that's true. Paging Werner Herzog. That is true.
Oh my God. He is such a redwood.
Yeah. Except he's not strong right now, so he's not quite a redwood. He's more like a sapling. Okay, so JJ goes to visit his daughter only to find out that she's missing.
Oh, shit.
A town car just happens to pull up outside of Molly's house, and out comes old Hambone Falcone.
It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It does. All right.
Yeah.
A town car just happens to pull up outside of Molly's house, and out comes old Hambone Marco. God damn. Hambone Falcone. What's going on, feller?
Is it Ranger or Mr. McQuade? May I come in, please?
Say what you came to say.
I came to offer my assistance. It seems a certain business acquaintance of mine, a certain Raleigh Wilkes, has disappointed me greatly.
I'm not interested in your problems, Falcone. I'll get in my own way, my own time.
Wilkes has your daughter, McQuade.
Jim.
It's his way of saying he would enjoy your company again.
I want my daughter back, Falcone.
Please, please. I'm more than willing to help you retrieve your loved one, providing, of course, that you return the favor.
What's your deal?
I will tell you precisely where you can find Mr. Wilkes and your daughter. However, in return, I would like certain assets of mine protected. I wish to claim what is mine.
Jim. anything. Please.
JJ dons his cowboy hat and loads his filthy truck with guns. It's Hatch and Dorr are in desperate need of some WD-40. KO arrives to find that JJ is off to Mexico. He wants to come with, but JJ's all like, it's not your fight partner, even though this is the asshole we've been chasing for the whole fucking movie, but stay behind.
You know, the one that shot at you and holed you up in the house.
Right. The one that killed Dakota, who was your friend there for about 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, that guy.
Kind of broke your will for a little bit.
Yeah, but it's not your fight. Don't worry about it.
Nah.
South of the border, JJ stops at a gas station to fill up. The locals are putting roses on the hood of his truck for luck as JJ gives a half-blind beggar next to the gas pump some money because we all know that anyone south of the border just can't wait for a fucking gringo to come down so they can bless him on his travels. And we all know that Texas Rangers and their brethren just love Mexico and its citizens. I mean, hell, JJ might have just given that man enough money to get eye surgery because one of his eyes is, that's how generous our precious hero is. Or maybe the guy can touch the hem of JJ's stretchy karate with the C jeans and get healed like Jesus did for that woman in the Bible.
You know, one of the J's in JJ is Jesus.
That's right. JJ wanders into a bar and finds Jackson waiting on him because the Fed just happens to know where to find him. And then KO shows up because characters just magically know where JJ McQuade is at all times in this movie. He shines so bright, he's basically like the North Star to these motherfuckers.
That's a real bright light, too.
Yeah.
Real bright.
Yeah, but it's under a bushel of terrible acting.
Right.
After showing JJ an arsenal of weapons in the back of his truck, Jackson makes a joke about smuggling KO back in the United States because racist humor is funny, especially when it's one minority against another. Way to go, 1980s. Then JJ, Jackson, and KO go hiking and rappelling down rocks and walking through rivers and shit. They eventually split up and then end up at different spots outside of Wilkes' compound. JJ is stationed up in a tree with binoculars, and he signals Jackson, and the Fed silently picks off Tufts with a crossbow. Meanwhile, through the magic of poor editing, JJ takes out a guard and drags his carcass into a barn. While hiding inside this barn, JJ spies Lola walking into a building with a tray of food. He follows her into said building and finds Sally. They all make a break for it, but, of course, things go south quickly. The thugs are alerted, guns are fired, but KO comes to the rescue and creates a diversion by firing a fucking bazooka into the compound right at the top of the stairs that JJ and company were ascending. Like, what's the fucking friendly fire, son? Take it easy here, hothead. There's a lot going on here, and because the editing really sucks and the logistics are never fully fleshed out, it's hard to know who is where in the compound, so we'll just give you what we see. KO shoots a bunch of dudes as they come out of a bunker. JJ, Sally, and Lola make a run for it, but Sally takes a bullet in the leg. KO stops shooting to reload, and the greaser goon returns and kicks our sidekick in the fucking face. Old Gigi asks KO if he remembers him, and KO shoots him and says, "Yeah, I never forget an asshole." Now that seems very personal. Wilkes finds a huge BAR automatic and rains rounds on JJ and the gang, including Jackson, who we're seeing again after a little while off screen. The Fed seems to be near JJ, Sally, and Lola, but who the fuck knows at this point. Jackson dives over a bunch of crates and into a pile of hay. Then he flings grenades like it's an Olympic sport, causing Hollywood explosions and stuntman flipping and shit. Meanwhile, JJ has broken away from Sally and Lola and is just shooting his big silver Magnum at something. Maybe Wilkes? Who the hell knows? Anyway, JJ decides to commandeer a bulldozer with all of the light bulb idea strategery of a former karate champion thinking to himself, now the script says I get in the bulldozer and drive it. JJ raises the bulldozer blade, and it's at this point that Wilkes decides to continue shooting at the Ranger with the huge machine gun that has definitely not run out of bullets and had to be reloaded or anything. And honestly, Wilkes is just looking out for us. I mean, if he didn't wait for the Ranger to get cover before firing on him again, he might have accidentally hit JJ. And that would most likely spoil our chances of getting a bulldozer versus an armored Humvee-looking tank thing fight. Wilkes finally empties his load into the bulldozer blade and gets behind the wheel of this Humvee tank gimmick. JJ and Wilkes drive at each other with the speed of two horny tortoises as Jackson has a firefight with a goon and gets shot in the gut yet again. And KO fires a bazooka at the ground near the Humvee to make other goons flip and shit. The Dozer and the Humvee connect, and what follows is the worst episode of BattleBots you've ever seen, with the bulldozer easily shoving the Humvee back into a building, causing the roof to cave in on the Humvee and Wilkes. JJ puts the Dozer in park while KO battles it out with 3 or 4 other goons. He lobs a grenade at them and they take cover. But then KO realizes that he forgot to pull the pin, so he pulls the pin on a second grenade and throws it. And even though it lands closer to these goons than the first grenade did, the goons come out from cover and fire on KO because apparently they are such weapons experts that they think that just because one grenade is a dud, then all the grenades in KO's possession must also be duds. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Apparently unfazed by the grenade explosions and machine gun fire just yards away from his position, JJ finally exits the bulldozer slower than Fred Flintstone when the work bell rings. The Ranger stands next to his victory vehicle and stares down the wrecked Humvee with a gaze that says, "The director told me to stare over there." I couldn't even get that one out.
That's awesome.
Finally, Wilkes emerges from the Humvee in a V-neck sweater packing an Uzi. JJ points his pistol at Wilkes as the danger dealer welcomes the Ranger to his hacienda like a discount store Blofeld. The two men train their weapons on each other for a long moment, but then decide to throw them away for a little bit of slap and tickle. I mean, not slap and tickle. I'm sorry. I mean karate fighting with a C. It's Walker versus Kane. It's Kane. Wilkes starts off getting the better of JJ. And then the two men go back and forth in a really solid martial arts fight until Wilkes kicks sand into JJ's eyes and then kicks the Ranger square in the face, rocketing him to the ground. At this point, Sally fears for her dad, so she runs out and tries to stop Wilkes, but he gives her a back fist to the face and knocks her down. JJ gazes hard at Wilkes as we are given a slow-motion flashback because we are action movie fans who are so dumb that we don't remember what happened just 10 seconds ago. Fucking MTV, you routed our fucking brains.
Mm-hmm.
JJ's blank stare turns into a slightly less blank bare teeth snarl. The Ranger screams and flies up from the ground and kicks Wilkes in his damn face. What follows is truly the ass-kicking of a lifetime as JJ blasts Wilkes with kicks and punches until the slithering simp is down for the count. JJ then looks from Wilkes to Sally with a glance that is so emotive that you just know that the director Steve Carver was saying, "Okay, Chuck, look to your right." I don't know if I even got that line out right.
Okay, Chuck, look to your right.
Try. All right, let me try it one more time. I'll get it right this time, I swear. Okay. JJ then looks from Wilkes to Sally with a glance that is so emotive that you just know that director Steve Carver was saying, fuck. You can laugh, that's fine. I'm trying to get through it without laughing first time through. I'll laugh afterwards. Okay. JJ then looks from Wilkes to Sally with a glance that is so emotive that you just know that director Steve Carver was saying, I laughed this hard when I wrote it too. God damn it. Last time, if I don't get through it this time, I'm just going to barrel through.
No, just pick up the line because you paused long enough to where you could edit that out.
That's true. Okay. Okay, Chuck, look to your right from behind the camera. Oh, my God.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Oh, God. JJ joins Sally and Lola just as Wilkes' main goon, the one who killed Sally's boyfriend, Bobby, earlier, he helps Wilkes up and hands him an Uzi. The goon is trying to help Wilkes escape, but the white cobra wants to blow away JJ. He cocks the Uzi. And fires, but Lola screams and takes the bullet for JJ. She falls to the ground as her theme plays, and Wilkes looks truly heartbroken that he shot her. The goon pulls a reluctant Wilkes away, and the two run into a building 50 or so yards down the way.
Again, they've known each other maybe 48 hours at this point, and she's taking a bullet for the man.
Yeah, right, exactly.
She's taking a goddamn bullet for him.
I know, and the thing that's weird, too, is that, like, Lola, JJ, and Sally are all sitting there clustered together. So if he was going to take a shot at JJ, his chances of hitting Lola were pretty damn good, too.
Right.
That's the thing I don't get, you know? It's logistics don't make any sense, you know? It's just so dumb.
No.
It's just crushingly dumb. JJ holds a dying Lola, and she whispers that she did not betray him, and that Wilkes killed her husband and forced her to be his partner before taking her last breath. Sally is sad for her dad as he hugs Lola's lifeless body for, 4 milliseconds. He looks up as if someone yelled, "Hey, Chuck, Bruce Lee would have kicked your ass for real," and then stands.
Which is what you said when we met him.
He shoots a hard glare toward the building where Wilkes is hiding. A look that, if it wasn't for the towering score, would probably land somewhere close to, "Hey guys, I need to take a big shit right now." But because of the score, it looks mean and determined. Jackson yells to McQuade and tosses him a grenade. JJ pulls the pin, like right in front of his face because it's a close-up and,
Sure.
He runs towards the building housing Wilkes as the death dealer fires his Uzi at the Ranger. A few yards down the way, JJ hurls the grenade and hits a fuel drum that sits next to the weapons crates that this fucking criminal mastermind Wilkes has been hiding behind. Awesome. JJ hits the deck and the grenade goes kaboom with a chain reaction Hollywood explosion that looks like one of Satan's own farts. A helicopter arrives and it's Hambone Falcone. He's bitching about how they destroyed his whole enterprise. Jackson hijacks the pilot and JJ's party climbs into the helicopter and fly away, leaving Falcone and his henchmen alone in the burning compound. We come to the end of this timeless epic with JJ and Jackson being celebrated by the press for their heroics. Captain Tyler pushes his way in and tries to take all the credit for it, but JJ just wanders off. See, kids, he's on vacation now, and he plans on helping Molly and Sally move to Las Cruces. But then KO arrives and says there's a bank robbery with hostages. And here, at the end of this incredible tale, we find that JJ has realized what is truly important in life. Killing bad guys, with taxidermy being a close second. Even though Molly and Sally plead with JJ to come with them and let other cops handle it, the word hostages is just too much for the Ranger to handle. He kisses his daughter goodbye and screams off in his Batmo Bronco to save the day, leaving his family high and dry. I mean, for Christ's sakes, the fucking U-Haul trailer was right there, JJ.
What a festering pile of horse shit this movie is. I mean, it's amusing, but God, it sucks ass. It's just, Norris is a fucking scarecrow. Yeah. He's just so bland and dull as an actor. And yes, he's a true tough guy and a hell of a fighter, but man, when you get in action movies, you kind of have to be the total package to tell a story. A dude just can't tell a story, man. His face will not let him.
It actively fights against him. It's just like, no.
Yeah. Good Lord.
When somebody asked him if David Carradine was a good martial artist, Chuck Norris said, he's as good of a martial artist as I am an actor. I was kind of like, okay, well, at least he kind of knows somewhat his limitations. But the thing is that I thought Carradine looked pretty fucking good with the martial arts part of it in this.
He did.
In fact, I found him more enjoyable to watch than Norris.
Yeah.
He threw a couple kicks and I was kind of like, yeah, okay, he's probably not as good of a he's not as good of a martial artist as Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is karate champion, for Christ's sakes. But I found Carradine very engaging, much more engaging than Norris. And that hand-to-hand combat at the end was great. I mean, that was a really good fight, even now, especially with that score in there. It was just beautiful.
Right.
Any integrity that this movie had really kind of went out the window when they attempted that first raid on the Quonset huts.
Yeah.
After that, the movie just kind of fell apart.
Oh, yeah.
There were too many coincidences in the plot, and Wilkes just happens to go after McQuade just to do some dick swinging, but then JJ's daughter just happens to get involved and things really escalate. I mean, if you think about just the main thing is that JJ was looking for these weapons and he just so happens to hook up with Lola, who just so happens to be in business with Wilkes, who just so happens to be the gun runner.
Right.
If you think about it from that perspective, then you're like, well, fuck, this is just a collection of action scenes and a fantastic fucking score.
Right.
And that's pretty much what this movie is.
In a nutshell. Yeah.
I mean, some of the actors elevated the movie, but not all of them. And once LQ Jones was gone, that was it, pretty much. Like, there was no one there who could consistently prop up Norris.
No.
Except for maybe Carradine, but then they weren't on screen together all that much.
Right.
And as much as I like the individual actors like Beltran, Carrera, Kennedy, Kimmel, like none of them really had the chops to keep him afloat. So it just kind of fell apart. But the score was a monster of a score.
Yeah, it was.
Just a truly, truly wonderful score. It did borrow heavily or, stole from Morricone, especially Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah.
So I want to do something here. I want to play 2 clips for you really fast.
Okay.
What I'm going to do first is I'm going to play the Lone Wolf McQuade clip that I have. Okay. So you can hear that. And then after that, I will play the clip from Once Upon a Time in the West.
Okay.
Here's the Lone Wolf McQuade clip. And this is a clip from Morricone's score for Sergio Leone's 1968 film, Once Upon a Time in the West. lot of similarities there.
A lot. Yeah, very similar.
Some note groupings that sound very, very similar. But, I mean, even with the similarities, though, Francesco Tomasi, the composer who did Lone Wolf McQuade, did some wonderful work. I mean, it made the movie so much better than it would have been otherwise, you know.
No, definitely.
He introduced a lot of really cool leitmotifs for the characters and a lot of cool textures and stuff, like the organ in the final fight scene that we just heard. Like, that was really cool. So that is the one takeaway from this, I think, is that was wonderful, and the movie sucked.
Yes.
So, remake our Rembrandt.
Oh, God, no.
Are you sure? I feel like we could do this.
Well, it's been done over and over and over again.
That's true.
It doesn't need to be made again, and it will be in some fashion. It'll be made again, but it doesn't need to be.
I saw on IMDb or someplace like that there was like a TV show called Lone Wolf McQuade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I also heard that the Walker, Texas Ranger people, when they put that show together, that the producers of this movie sued them for an infringement, but then they settled or something. So I'm like, whatever. I mean, Walker, Texas Ranger is yet less interesting than Lone Wolf J.J. McQuade, you know? So
Right.
So yeah, that movie sucked. Do you want us to move on to the other movie?
Let's do it.
Okay.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy
Roscoe Lippin' Butts.
Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious Schlené coffee freshly brewed. And all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now.
Two minutes until showtime.
Howdy, partners. When I come off the trail after a long cattle drive, well, my throat sure is dusty. So I hit the saloon and wet my whistle with an ice-cold Schlené beer. It goes down clear as a mountain stream. And that phrase ain't copyrighted. You can check. Schlené beer. Don't drink water. It'll rust your gut.
"90 seconds until showtime."
Coming soon to this drive-in theater.
When the system of justice doesn't work, Bronson does. When the courts can't do what they must, Bronson will. Bronson fighting all the evil that men do.
Torture as a political instrument has become a subtle and sophisticated specialty.
When the most savage murderer cannot be caught or stopped, there is only one man to turn to.
You don't seem like the kind of man that would commission somebody's death.
I'm not, but the doctor stands outside the moral laws of civilized people.
When evil becomes above the law, the only law left belongs to Bronson.
What are you going to do? I'm going to rattle his cage.
In the name of revenge, there is just one name. Bronson, fighting all the evil that men do.
It's showtime.
And now, please enjoy our feature presentation.
One is a dead-eyed, expressionless killing machine with hands of steel and feet of stone who will stop at nothing to stop them that wronged him. And the other is the bad guy. This is Silent Rage.
Columbia Pictures presents Chuck Norris.
Hot damn fighters! You call the police?
Not me, boss.
Nobody call the police. You must be a mirage.
The master fighter of our time. But not even he could imagine the power of the indestructible man he is about to face. A creation of science whose only thought is to survive.
Thank you, senor.
The unstoppable terror of Silent Rage. Now, Chuck Norris must destroy him.
Dan, watch out!
In a final battle to the death and beyond. Silent Rage.
Picture this, if you will. A sweaty, mentally disturbed man with a mouthful of large teeth sleeping under the glow of a stained glass window. This is John Kirby, played by Brian Libby, the real killer of Andy Dufresne's wife. He's awakened by a young boy and told that he has a phone call. Eventually he gets to the phone and his three playing boys and their screaming mother make a hell of a racket around him. Kirby's doctor's on the line and he tells the doctor that he's losing it and he can't take it anymore. He fumbles for some pills and spills them on the floor. He hangs up the phone and heads outside, grabbing an axe off of a wood chopping stump. The screeching mother sends the boys off to the park, and once they're gone, Kirby enters the house with the axe and goes after the caterwauling mother. He traps her in her bedroom, takes the axe and does a "Here's Johnny" on the door. Her husband enters and smashes a chair over the man's back, but John turns and buries the axe in the husband's forehead. Weak. Kirby finally hacks his way through the door, and the woman yells for the mailman to get help. She struggles but ultimately succumbs to Kirby's swinging axe. Within seconds, we see an SUV pull up, and who climbs out but Walker, Texas fucking Ranger himself, Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
We get a hero shot of this character, Sheriff Dan Stevens, and follow him into the house.
What a shit name. Hey, Sheriff Dan Stevens.
I'm Sheriff Dan Stevens. I appreciate your support.
Here's a free sausage.
Don't forget to come down to the fish fry. Dan, with his hat, his gun, and his mustache, quietly searches the house looking for teepees. Kirby sneaks up behind Dan and swings the axe, missing him. A tussle ensues. Kirby escapes through the upstairs window and jumps to the ground. Dan follows and nearly gets shot by his bumbling deputy, Charlie, played by Stephen First. Dan chases Kirby into the woods. Kirby finds a loose board and pops Dan in the ribs. They scuffle and ultimately Dan knocks Kirby cold with the board. He cuffs Kirby and walks him back to the awaiting squad cars. Kirby's doctor, Tom Hallman, played by Ron Silver, arrives and wants to speak to his patient, but he'll have to do that in the county clink. Back in the car, Kirby breaks the handcuff chains with pure crazy guy strength, and then mule kicks the cruiser door off its hinges. He fights with the deputies, but they finally subdue him with several bullets. He's down, but he's not out. That's an amazing opening scene. It really is great with minimal score, which is also really nice. It just kind of makes it more realistic without a bunch of, cheesy score over the top of it.
Yeah. I mean, I like, too, how in the absence of score, they accentuate all these sounds. So he's upstairs and he's hearing everything that's happening in the house. And there's no way he could hear the phone ringing that loudly in his room because the door's closed and everything. And then when he goes downstairs, he plays into it because I think the husband or the other guy in the house, whoever the hell that guy is, he comes upstairs and they meet on the landing and Kirby backs into the corner as if he's just frightened as fuck of this guy. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a great opening scene. And the thing about it is that the director, Michael Miller, sets the tone right away with the credits. It's this shot of that window, and the sun's coming through it, and it's a green window, and it's casting like a little bit of a green color across the wall. And you're not sure if it's a still photo or if it's motion. And then the credits, the way, like the weird font that they're in and the way they fade in and out on the wall and the score for the credits, it's all so weird.
It really is.
It strikes a perfect note.
Yeah.
And then they get rid of the score and they don't have it again until he comes back in with the axe. And then I think they have just like a little bit of a stab there. And then it goes back to scoreless again. But I think the fact that it doesn't have score is just fantastic. And from the time he gets up until he comes back in with the axe, it's one continuous shot, right?
It is, yeah. From the moment the kid wakes him up to, he goes downstairs, he talks to the doctor, he spills the pills, goes out, gets the axe, and the chase with him and the woman ensues. That's all one shot.
Right.
And it's done so well.
It really
That's
is.
probably a good, 4 or 5 minute shot before he finally gets to swinging the axe.
Something like that. And the thing about it too is that he goes outside to get the axe, but the camera doesn't follow him out. The camera watches him through the window, which is so much scarier.
Yeah.
We watch him through the window and he picks up that axe and he just kind of robotically chops it against the stack of wood there.
Right.
But he's not chopping anything. He's just kind of like, this is how a human chops. And then he goes into the chicken houses and he's in there for a while.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and he goes inside. And then once the mother sends the kids away, all hell breaks loose. It's so bizarre. And
yeah,
we're going to probably end up singing Brian Libby's praises over and over in this movie because
he's fantastic from start to finish.
He's really great. I mean, I was thinking about this right before we started recording, and I think this movie came out like 2 years before The Terminator. And I mean, spoiler alert, it's basically the Terminator without him being a machine and the time travel and all that shit. But if you take that away, the indestructible man who's got a mission, but his mission is to survive. If we're looking at this as kind of a precursor to the Terminator in some ways, in a very basic way.
Sure.
Brian Libby's performance is better than Arnold Schwarzenegger's.
Oh, I'd agree with that.
And granted, they're two different characters. They come from two different places as far as like one's a robot. One is a psychopath who's an animal, basically.
Yeah.
But Kirby's just so much more effective.
Yeah.
I mean, the lines that he has here in the beginning of the movie are the only lines he has in the movie.
Right.
That's it. I mean, he grunts once,
Yeah.
But the phone call that he has here is the only lines that he has in the movie. And yet, when I think of the movie, his performance is the very first thing I think of. And then the score is the second thing that I think of.
Mm-hmm.
He's just absolutely brilliant. The mother is also brilliant. I mean, because I know that mother because I grew up with that mother and she is wonderful. Not really, but she's just fantastic. And she seems like she's probably one of those actresses that they got in Texas.
Yeah.
They have some great actors down there that just acted in productions that went through Texas at the time.
Right.
Yeah. And
Down the dreaded Sundown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there was another one of the gangster movies, I think maybe
Dillinger?
Probably.
Yeah.
Had some of those actors in it. So she's really great. I would say that the dad's great, but he doesn't really do anything except
take an axe to the head.
That's the other thing
Right.
too, is the axe thuds are so cool. And they're even more disturbing because they're not spectacular. It's literally a thud.
Which is probably what it's really like.
Right, exactly.
I mean, hopefully we'll never know, but I mean,
right.
I'm sure it doesn't sound like you're chopping into a watermelon or a big bowl of meat or something. It probably just sounds like a thud.
Yeah, like a thud.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant opening. I wish that the rest of the movie held up to this opening.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it could if it weren't for Chuck Norris, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I would too.
And really his whole story. I mean, it's like his whole story is pretty pointless until he starts fighting with the monster at the end.
This is a good movie, but a little tweaking. It could be like a horror classic, and it's not really a horror movie per se. That's not billed that way.
Right.
But it's a slasher movie.
Well, and that's an interesting thing, too, because I was going to talk about this later, but I think now's perfect since you brought it up. Like, I read this interview with Michael Miller, the director, and he swore up and down that he saw this as a Frankenstein movie where Chuck Norris takes on Frankenstein's monster. And I was like, I can see that, but the interviewer kept saying, oh, well, it's a slasher movie, too. You know, and he's like, oh, I never thought of it as a slasher movie. I'd never seen those movies and yada, yada, yada.
Come on.
Right. I mean, the jumpsuit that Kirby ends up wearing in here looks a lot like Michael Myers.
Yes, yes.
There's a lot of stuff in here that could be very comparable to Halloween as well. In fact, now that I say that, I think the comparison between Michael Myers and John Kirby is actually more apt than John Kirby and the Terminator.
Yes.
And so there's stuff in here that's lifted directly from the first Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that a lot of this movie, especially in the middle and in the back half, takes place in a hospital as he's roaming around killing people.
That's Halloween 2.
Halloween 2, which came out in 1981, so a year before this movie. So, you know, for him to say that he didn't know anything about those movies.
Yeah, I call it bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, or you know what? Maybe he didn't know it, but the screenwriter did.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be James Fraley, I think, is the screenwriter on this. He could have known that, I suppose. But even still, this is a good movie with a great idea that probably could still be made today, you know?
Yeah. This is one of the few movies that we've covered where I don't think technology would ruin this one.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because the technology for what they end up doing to create the monster has not been, as far as we know, invented yet.
Right.
So, I mean, this could actually still be a viable movie if they remade it.
I see what you're saying. Like, science wouldn't get in the way of telling the story. Right.
Yeah, because, I mean, everything most of the movies we cover, it's like, well, the internet would ruin this movie.
Yeah, didn't we talk about that with something like Horror High, where, well, it couldn't really be remade because scientists would be like, well, you can't do that because da-da-da-da-da, you know. And,
right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think so.
It's just how cell phones and the internet and GPS and everything would completely ruin a lot of these old movies.
Yeah.
Whereas this isn't the case, you know, for this movie.
Right. Yeah, there are a couple instances where it's kind of like they need a phone, and if they had a cell phone, then it probably would eliminate some of the tension, but there are so many weaknesses in the movie, and there's already so much extraneous stuff in the movie that you would have a lot of room to really finesse that and stretch it out a little bit.
Yeah.
When you originally brought up the idea of technology, I started thinking about the stunts.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of stuff, I think technology actually could hurt because later on when he's on fire, we know someone is on fire.
Yeah.
It's not that there's a digital fire on this guy in a green suit, you know? It's
right.
It's like real fire. So, which I don't necessarily want to put people in danger like that just for a fucking movie, but there is a difference, you know?
Right.
A definite difference. But yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a good point. That's a really good point. I guess, you know, we've basically talked about the entire film now. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Hang up your speakers. Drive slowly as you exit.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on anyway and see if we can make some people interested.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully. Dr. Hallman was a surgeon in a past life, so not only is he Kirby's shrink, but he's also removing the bullets from his torso and being a real bossy pants about it. Meanwhile, Dan has bruised ribs and refuses to have him taped because he's Chuck Norris and he ain't no sissy. Charlie is impressed by the hospital. Not only do they do psychiatry and surgery, but they also do molecular and genetic engineering. They test on monkeys and shit, and some of their staff members have their voices overdubbed. They can do it all.
Stephen Furst and Chuck Norris both sound like they're in that room, but that doctor who's right in the middle of them, he does not sound like he's in that room at all.
He sounds like he's in a booth somewhere. Yeah,
in Italy.
Yeah. Add a little ambient noise, please.
Yeah.
You know.
He's at Cinecittà going, now you see, we work on molecular biology here. Fucking hell.
Yeah, it's terrible. Kirby survived the surgery, but is pronounced brain dead. Dr. Spires, played by Stephen Keats, and his partner Dr. Vaughn, played by William Finley, want to do a little experimenting with a jar of red liquid. Hallman says they've never tested it on a human, and Spires says, well, we're doing it now, motherfucker, and Vaughn shoots a syringe full into Kirby's IV. Back to Dan, he runs into an old flame, Allison, played by Tony Collette, who plays Ketchup by slapping the mustache off his face. Things didn't end well, one would gather. Back in the cutting room, it seems old Kirby isn't responding well to the juice. Or is he?
0. It's back to the test tubes. Our process failed. No, damn it. Just give it a little more time.
Come on, Silver, Phil. The man's dead.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's coming back.
Increase the unit count.
Make it 50,000.
Phil, what are you talking about? Look what the mitogen's doing to his brain pattern. This isn't right. This is illegal, and this is immoral. We have a vegetable laying here on the table that was a human being with a mind as well as a body.
Was this where you're going to start talking to me about souls and playing God?
Now, I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking to you about. We don't know what the formula is going to do to this man's mind, Phil. Will you do me a favor? Will you look at that? Look, this guy's mind was unbalanced to begin with. Phil, I'm telling you. I say let this man die in peace.
You guys want to flip a coin or something? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Let him die in peace.
Okay, look, it was a long night. You want a drink?
Yeah. In my office. I'll be with you in a minute.
Phil. You did the best thing.
Night, Tom. Now, we do the right thing.
I love how we have a vegetable on the table.
Yeah.
He was once a furry carrot, and now he's a killing machine.
Doctor, we need to operate on the pumpkin.
Yeah. Yeah. He was once a pomegranate. Oh, that's a fruit. Shit.
Shit. Well, they had a good use of building anticipation in this scene, I think. Because, you know, Kirby was hard to kill initially, so this really ups the ante with this serum.
You're right, it really does. And I like how we see it all kind of play out. But the guy that I really like in this scene is Vaughn, because he's like, you guys want to flip a coin or something or what?
Vaughn's pretty great. Like, he's not really a voice of reason at all.
No.
He just kind of goes along with whatever Keats wants to do. Yeah. But he's just like, all right, pal, whatever. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, and the thing about him, too, is that when he sees something go too far, finally, he'll weigh in. You know, most of the time, he's just kind of like, man, what the fuck are we doing? I got a golf game or
yeah, could really use a cup of coffee right now.
Yeah, I'm eating the rest of this yogurt. In one scene, he's like eating yogurt later on. It's just like, okay. He's the guy I like because he's more, to me, the realistic character in here.
Right. The acting in this is, for me, a little hit or miss. Like, Silver isn't bad, but the acting here in general, I think is kind of silly. Spires really tries for the intensity of like a Brad Dourif, but he just comes off with a guy who looks like he's good at doing a hard stare. He does improve as the film progresses, but I wish he had been played by someone else, honestly. Like a Charles Fleischer, for instance. He has got that kind of quality to him. And it made me wish that they had hired Fleischer or Dourif instead, if that's what they were going for.
I am drunk on potato chips right now, but I would arm wrestle you over this if we were in the same projection booth, because I really love Stephen Keats, and I think he's perfectly cast here, but the script is awful.
Yeah.
The dialogue is absolutely terrible. Like when he originally, I think it's before the clip that we had, But when he shoots a syringe into the IV and he says, live, live, live. That kind of thing is like selling lava rocks in hell for the poor guy. I mean, it's just tough. And that hits the Frankenstein connection a little too on the nose for me. Like, it's just a little too hard. But Keats was an excellent actor. I mean, his screen debut was as Jackie Brown in The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which is probably like one of the best low-key heist movies of the 1970s. Starred Robert Mitchum and Peter Boyle's in it. But the main heist in The Friends of Eddie Coyle was how Stephen Keats grabbed the fucking movie and walked off with it. He was excellent in that. So
I will say he gets better as this movie progresses.
Yeah.
Like you said, the script is probably the thing that's killing him. But right off the bat, I'm thinking, ooh, this boy is a ham, and he's he's overdoing it.
I mean, I wouldn't have believed Brad Dourif in this part.
No.
Because here's the thing about Brad Dourif for me, and I'm not saying this is who he is as a person. I'm saying, like, as an actor, I don't think of him as a smart man. He doesn't appeal to me as a smart man in his acting work. Fleischer, I think, comes off as much smarter, but Fleischer to me has always been a little bit more low-key creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with this part, what they needed, and I think the reason they probably ended up hiring Keats is because they needed this guy who could totally shake your hand and stab you in the back and make you feel good about both actions.
Right.
And I don't think the script lives up to that. Like the script doesn't reach that height, but I think that's the guy that they got. But I could see where you would have the reaction that you had.
Yeah.
Because especially in the early goings, it's brutal to listen to this dialogue. And Ron Silver's just kind of Ron Silver. I agree with you. Like, okay, well, I've seen him act, so I know this is him.
Right.
So we're good.
Yeah.
But something we're going to see time and time again in this movie is a mostly great cast struggling with subpar material while also trying to prop up the knucklehead on the poster.
Yeah, right.
And they don't really get the job done, but I don't blame them for it either.
Yeah, they try. I mean, it's a shame that Stephen Furst didn't have somebody better to play off of.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Right.
And we'll get to that. But, I think Furst as a comedic actor is great.
Yeah.
And I think Silver, like you said, he's Silver, but I don't think he's bad.
No,
and I think he's far and away better than Norris, but who isn't?
Well, yeah.
So, I think there are some good actors here. Obviously, Libby is fantastic. And he didn't have to say a word, and he's fantastic. So it's, I don't think it's not for lack of effort. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think behind Stephen Furst, the person I feel the most for in the whole movie is Toni Callum, because she has to be in love with a popsicle stick for the whole goddamn movie. Like, this guy is a melted popsicle of an actor, and she has to be in love with him for the whole fucking movie. And she does a fine job with what she's given to do. And the fact that when he sees her and says, how's things been going? Kablam! And she slaps her across the face. I love that. That's beautiful. Like, that's good writing, because you don't need, you left me 10 years ago, which I think they do a little bit of that in the movie, but that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's probably written by a guy who's been slapped for saying, hey, how have you been before,
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, he's Chuck Norris, so just cold cock him.
Yeah.
He can take it, and she does too, man.
Right.
She slaps the shit out of him.
She really does. She does.
Yeah.
He almost winces, but he can't get the look on his face.
Hallman tells Dan that Kirby didn't make it. If he had known what Kirby was capable of, Hallman would have institutionalized him and the tragedy would never have occurred. Dan's all, I know you would have. It's okay. I'm going to carry my cowboy hat out now.
Right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, left. Shit.
Don't look at the camera. Don't look at the camera.
Don't look at the camera. Don't look at the camera.
As Dan is leaving, Allison enters, and we discover that she is Hallman's sister. Hallman doesn't know that she and Dan have a history. Dan asks her for a ride back to the station. She reluctantly agrees, and he immediately puts the moves on her by sticking his finger in her ear. And, of course, that leads to dirty sex. Don't be confused. Chuck Norris is a heterosexual.
Yeah, okay.
He's all man.
I like the parts of this scene with Allison and Holman, they do come off as a brother and sister. Like Tony Callum and Ron Silver do have a good sibling chemistry.
Right.
But when Norris descends on the proceedings, it's like this noxious green cloud of Jim farts and mediocrity moving in. Delivering this shitty flat lines and then leaving again. It's just like terrible. Just fucking terrible.
When I was looking at the cast listing on here, I was noticing that Hallman and Allison both had the same last name, and I'm like, oh man, is Dan fucking the doctor's wife in this movie or something? Because I saw this when I was a kid, but didn't remember hardly anything about it other than the ending. I still remembered the ending, but yeah, I was like, oh no, that's really unnecessary.
It would be a coincidence on the level of the entire plot of Lone Wolf McQuade.
Yeah.
I mean, as it is, the fact that she is Holman's sister is still a little too much of a coincidence. I mean, but if it were his wife, I'd just be like, oh, come on.
I'm going to get to it here in a little bit, but her character here really is a catalyst to get from one scene to the other. Her character really is disposable in this movie, which is a shame.
It really is.
But when we start to examine it a little bit, you're going to see that she really doesn't even need to be in this movie at all for the movie to play.
Well, and the thing that's weird is that she is responsible for one of two of Chuck Norris's decent scenes in the film.
Yeah.
The one here when they're rolling around in bed. Apparently, Michael Miller just told Norris to just improvise in that scene, and Norris just balked at the idea. But he did it, and it really came off pretty smooth. Like, he was a little better than he is in the rest of the movie. I mean, he needed to be a lot better to impress a schlub like me, but he was only a little bit better. The other thing about when they're in bed together, we see another dark and awful aspect of Chuck Norris's performance, or a Chuck Norris performance of any vintage. Tony Callum is really kissing him, right? But what he gives in return is like a nun kissing a crucifix. Like, he's just like tight-lipped. It's like he practiced for this role by kissing a cold lamppost,
It's like she's making out with a CPR dummy.
Yeah, right. He might be a hetero, but girls are apparently still icky to this dipshit, It's like,
Oh, man, that's awful. The next day, Dan meets that dummy Charlie at a diner. Charlie's being harassed by a couple of bikers and a biker mama. Dan enters, and the motorcycle club president, played by Jade DePland, turns his harassment toward Dan, calling him a candy ass, and Dan says something about the biker's teeth.
Dental humor.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure what was said because Norris's dulcet tone was lulling me to sleep. The biker goes to pull a knife, but Dan grabs him by the throat and tells him to pound gravel. It ain't over, says the biker.
Damn right it's not. We got a big gratuitous set piece coming later on.
Oh, God, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
This is my favorite scene involving that walking jockey. It's Chuck Norris. At least that part out on the porch is my favorite part. His flat delivery, like when the biker says, "This ain't over," and he's like, "It better be." I thought that was funny. I popped for that one.
Yeah.
And then him humoring Charlie's delusions of grandeur, I thought that was really good. Precisely because his line readings are so flat and he's no-selling Charlie.
Right.
And then finally, without fail, I always covet Charlie's burgers in this scene. And that's not a euphemism. Talking about his burgers. His 2 hamburgers that he gets in the diner that look so good. If I could eat decked out burgers, which I cannot, I too would order 2 burgers at this dive shit joint because they give you potato chips instead of French fries.
Yeah.
Are we in Texas? Like, get the fuck after it. Like, turn the fryer on, man. Fry them on the goddamn parking lot. I don't give a shit. If you're giving me potato chips, I'm going to need 2 burgers to get me through.
Right.
So I do covet the burgers, but I wouldn't fight Charlie for them because he'd probably still beat my ass, but...
I thought you were about to go on an anti-potato chip rant there and turn on the fryers and give me some fries. I'm thinking, man, I like chips. I like chips with a burger.
I like chips too, but as we found out tonight before we started recording, I'm starting to come out of it, but sometimes carbohydrates make me a little drunk. So, I'm just saying that potato chips I could kind of get at the store, take home, blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, granted, I could do fries, but
yeah,
there's something about having a good French fry cooked for you by an eatery,
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
I'm not talking gourmet shit. I'm just talking like a good old French fry.
It's kind of a rarity to get chips with a meal anymore. So, whenever the opportunity presents itself, I'm usually like, yeah, chips. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
This has been Potato Talk with Chuck and Ryan.
Coming up next, vegetables that we made into killing machines.
After throwing some groceries down their necks, Charlie questions if he's in the right line of work. The melee with Kirby rattled him. He says he's never been a fan of violence and he's always ran from a fight. Dan takes the time to put one foot on his lifted SUV so we get a good solid shot of his crotch and says he thinks Charlie will make a great cop. Charlie grins ear to ear and says he was hoping Dan would say that and rips ass out of the parking lot. I was so amused by Norris putting his foot on that bumper of the truck because he's so short and his knee was just above his waist. And it was like he was just presenting that dick, So back to first here. I mean, he's a great comedic actor, but his character here has got a lot going on.
Yeah.
He wants to be a cop. It's like his dream, but he's just a timid guy.
Yeah.
And he's fearful of violence. And who's not? I mean, who really wants to go in there swinging,
Right.
Unless you're just kind of a psychopath.
Right.
But he's really good at playing these meek, dopey characters, and he's very good here. But Norris just could not sell the lines in their interplay whatsoever.
Well, like I said before, I think that the flat delivery for Norris really works when they're on the porch, but I totally agree. When they're in the diner talking about more serious stuff, Norris just doesn't hold up his end of the seesaw. Like he just doesn't have the weight.
Or the humor. He has...
Exactly.
There's a scene coming up where First is going to tell him a really bizarre story.
Yeah.
That could use an actor with a sense of humor to play off of because it is an absurd story.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that when we get there because that's the other scene in the movie that I think Chuck Norris is at his best.
Oh, okay.
But I'll tell you why when we get there.
Okay.
One thing, though, while we're talking about Norris delivering lines, the word dadgum does not sit comfortably in his mouth.
No.
And one of the problems that we have here, just like we had in Lone Wolf McQuade, is that he has no gravity in his voice.
Right.
So everything that he delivers is in this mid-range tone that doesn't land any of the lines that he's saying. And it's like I can take a flat delivery of a line, even the word dadgum, if that's included, that's fine. If an actor like Tommy Lee Jones utters it.
All right.
Because he's got some base wisdom in his tone.
Right.
But Norris just has never had that. And I think that's why they feel the need to try to stack these casts to prop him up because they know that he just doesn't have it. I read something about Chuck Norris where he said that Steve McQueen once told him, he's like, let everybody else do the exposition, the other actors. You stay as quiet as possible. And then when you say something, just make it short, make it quick, and people are going to really listen to you because you're the action star. And I'm just kind of like, well, that's great for Steve McQueen to say.
Right. Because he was a great actor.
Because he was a good actor. Yeah, right. And he told Norris, he's like, look, you'll get better. You should have seen me in The Blob. And Chuck's like, okay, I'll get better. And then he just never did.
Right.
But he just doesn't sell anything except when he doesn't know what's coming. When he doesn't know what's coming, then he sells a genuine reaction because he doesn't know what's coming.
Right. Right.
But other than that, if he knows what's coming, he's thinking to himself, when they finish talking, then I have to say, you'll make a great cop, Charlie,
Right.
So
I think at some point early on, he was like, they're going to keep paying me just to keep doing the same thing. So why improve?
Well, and, honestly, from like a purely mercenary capitalistic standpoint, who could blame the guy?
Right. It's worked for a lot of these guys for years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how much did Schwarzenegger dine out on I'll Be Back or Hasta La Vista, Baby? And
Right. Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's worked for a lot of these guys, and now they get together for Expendables movies every few years, and
yeah,
you know, they have to cut around their wheelchairs, and I don't know. I'm sorry, getting a little bitter here. My childhood's being dismantled here when I'm rewatching these movies, so pardon me if I get a little testy.
Yeah.
But please, God, continue.
Vaughn leads an intensely impatient Hallman to a newly reactivated biohazard wing of the hospital. There they find Spires and a sedated Kirby. Hallman is pissed until Spires and Vaughn reveal that the serum has given Kirby rapid self-healing powers. His organs are strengthened to that of a 20-year-old. All of his bullet wounds are healed. Spires takes a scalpel and slices into Kirby's chest. It heals within seconds with no scarring. Their formula could change medicine as we know it. Hallman is amazed and orders the serum to go through a full testing phase, and Spires agrees.
I like how you've re-edited the plot here, because I never liked the idea of cutting between Dan and Charlie at the diner and the three Frankensteins at the hospital.
Yeah.
I can understand how a filmmaker who wants to eliminate shoe leather could think that cutting the movie this way works, but it seems like the more elegant solution would have been to simply cut away from the diner to the hospital like you did here, even showing Vaughn and Hallman walk down the tunnel and talk just on their way, and then cut back to Dan and Charlie in the truck later on.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of character building and storytelling just in the tunnel talk.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things that you could do, and it wouldn't require this weird editing that kind of fucks around with time in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
As Kirby gets a CT scan, Dan visits Allison at the hospital to pick up Kirby's death certificate. She invites him out for coffee and a chat. Dan tries desperately not to dry hump her on her desk because he's a red-blooded American straight man.
Who kisses like he's sucking a lemon seed through a straw.
Right. The three doctors look at the results of the CT scan and map his genetics. They are excited what the serum is doing to his body, but Hallman is still concerned knowing what kind of mindset Kirby had prior to his death and resurrection. In the hospital waiting room, Allison and Dan, with his foot on the table so his balls are again on full display, put on an acting clinic of emotional frustration. Well, one of them is frustrated at least.
So, I just feel kind of confused about what happened.
You mean last night?
Yeah. I mean, everything just... it's happening so fast. I'm just not sure it's what we really want. You know what I mean?
No.
It's no use, Dan. I just can't start seeing you again.
Okay.
Okay? You sure give up easy. I mean, once we're on the park and it's arrivederci, Allison. You really know how to make a girl feel good. You really do.
I didn't say I'd give up. I just said okay.
Okay, fine. That's it then. Finito, the end of the chapter.
You sure give up easy.
Yeah, I do.
Wait a minute.
Hello, Sheriff. How are you? Phil Spicer, have you met Sheriff Stevens before?
Yeah, we met last night.
Oh, I gave the sheriff the death certificate, okay?
Now all I need is the body to go with it.
Yeah, okay, we just...
We are not through with the autopsy yet.
That's the coroner's job.
So it is. Do come by and see us again sometime, Sheriff.
How about tonight?
Forget it, Dan.
I swear the only facial expression that Norris has other than that blank and dumb look that he carries through the whole movie is a smile. It's like he's got this like shit-eating grin, and otherwise it's just God. And Spires is giving him the hard stare and is acting suspicious, and Norris's face just does nothing.
Yeah.
Just nothing at all.
He's sitting there resting.
Allison walks out of their relationship, and he just kind of shrugs. It's like, God, give this man an acting coach, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Bruce Lee is like, I want you in Way of the Dragon, but I don't want you to say anything, okay?
No,
or very
nothing.
little. We'll dub you. Don't worry about it.
Trust me, everybody's going to be preoccupied with your back hair anyway.
Yeah, that sweater. You take your shirt off. Like, why is this guy wearing a sweater? I think it's summer in Rome.
You know, the story is intriguing here. It's just a shame that the star of the movie isn't up to the task of propelling it. You know, the doctors are all doing the heavy lifting, and Dan and Allison are having a lover spat, which really has no purpose in the movie.
Absolutely. I mean, the last few times through the movie, I found myself more and more interested in staying with the doctor's side of the story.
Yeah.
Even though the Frankenstein story has been told countless times, and it's actually one of my favorite novels in the history of literature, I still would rather stay with those guys and just make the sheriff a lesser character.
Right.
This movie was written for Chuck Norris, written for him.
Ugh.
But the story as it stands really doesn't lend itself to being told from his perspective, like primarily from his perspective.
Right.
And especially given that, one, like you said, Norris can't pull his own weight. And two, there just isn't much to this character. Like the Dan Stevens character is just kind of nothing.
Yeah.
Like you said, he shrugs when Allison says that she doesn't want to see him anymore. He shrugs when Spires tells him that they haven't finished the autopsy, even though Dan himself points out that it's the coroner's job.
Right.
He doesn't pursue anything. So we have to fill out this story in the movie with this hot and cold less story and then the stupid dick swinging biker subplot.
Right.
And the only reason the biker subplot is there is to show off Norris's fighting skills. That's it. And then the love story is only included to give Dan some one-note motivation, some damsel to protect when he takes on Kirby at the end. And that's it.
Right. That's it.
And the thing that really pisses me off about the love story here is that they make Allison look childish and quote unquote overly emotional. You know, she's like the emotional woman. Like she slaps Dan, but then she gives him a ride home and sleeps with him. And she tells him they can't be together, but then she sulks when he shrugs and says, okay. Look, I'm going to throw a couple of mud bombs here. You can tell this movie is written by a couple of guys, Joseph Fraley and an uncredited Edward DiLorenzo, who don't really care to understand Allison as anything more than a flag to be captured and protected.
Right.
You know, even as her emotions blow back and forth in the breeze, like that's all they want. And really, that just serves Norris because it makes him look even more, quote unquote, heroic from a macho perspective by protecting her, even though she's portrayed as jerking him around. And just like, you know, she's a good actress, man. Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
And sadly, that's pretty much the fate of every actress who starred in an action movie in the 80s too.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, even if you look back, I think Fraley, one of the screenwriters on this movie, his only other writing credit, I think, was an earlier Chuck Norris movie called Good Guys Wear Black. And Ann Archer's in that movie, and she plays this journalist. And in that movie, it's a little more like, I can't trust this woman. You know, I'm her love interest and we fuck, but I also can't trust her. And so it's like, okay, we get it. But, you know, you have Ann Archer, you have Tony Callum in your movie. It's like having a hammer, but insisting on driving all your nails with the handle of your screwdriver. You know, like, use the fucking hammer, man. It gets things done so much better.
I don't like James Cameron, but one thing I'll give him is that in the 80s, he was not afraid to make a strong female character.
Right.
Well, I mean, he didn't create Ripley, but he had a movie where she was definitely the smartest person in the room and the toughest person in the room, in a room full of Marines.
Right.
And most of the action movies that you had beyond that were just damsels in distress.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So at least Cameron had that going for him.
Yeah.
He could shoot a great action sequence, and he made, you know, tough female characters. That was good.
Yeah. And his dialogue
sucks.
We talked about Alien over text here today, so we can't even get into Alien and the creation of Ripley because that is another episode that will happen someday. But I have thoughts on Alien.
I know you do.
That's a tough subject. But no, I agree. I mean, I think here the part of the problem with Silent Rage is that you have these untapped things that you could do something. The biker subplot can go away.
Right.
And that's it. But the love story thing, there's something there. There's something you could use in there and turn it into something that's more than what it is. You know, more than just we need somebody for him to save and protect.
Yeah. Back in the mad scientist lab, Hallman and Spires continue to bicker over the comatose body of Kirby, about the experiment, and lying to Dan.
Look, I am sick and tired of hearing about this goddamn sheriff.
Hey, Phil, forget about the sheriff. Just tell me, what the hell are you trying to prove? You saw his cellular structure. It's completely deranged. It's regenerating new cells. The lattice is distorted. It's beyond anything human.
Shit, come on, you're jumping the gun and drawing conclusions before all the evidence is in.
Phil, what's wrong with you? What are you talking about, jumping the gun? What are you in such a hurry for? What, are you afraid somebody's gonna beat you to a new patent? Make some licensing arrangement with some chemical company or something?
Go fuck yourself.
Look, Phil, don't give me that shit. What is this crap, stealing human bodies and tampering with them for our own experiments? Look, Phil, tell me what you're trying to do. What are you trying to do? Create a new breed of man? Superman, physically invulnerable? What about the higher functions? Rationality, thought, emotions? Phil, listen to me, man. The mind is my field. Now, I thought I would never say this about a human being, but that sucker is better off dead. Now, either you terminate Kirby or I'm going to do it.
Who the hell do you think you're talking? Do I have to remind you that I am your boss? And I will decide what happens in here and when, not you! Now get the fuck out of here! Now!
During their argument, Kirby's eyes open and then close again as Hallman storms out. Just listening to that, I kind of take back what I said about Stephen Keats. That was a great scene right there. And
yeah.
Just hearing the audio of it, man, he fucking laid into him. So I take it back.
Congratulations.
I take it back.
It's nice to have you in the club. I'll send you your little pin here as soon as I can.
Stephen Keats fan club.
Yeah. He was a great actor. And you can hear him spitting in Ron Silver's face when he tells him to get the fuck out of his lab. It's just like, damn.
Yeah.
I like how Kirby's eyes pop open the moment he hears Hallman say something about him being better off dead.
Yeah.
And to me, I think Kirby would have killed the doctors anyway, but that's definitely the moment he decides to kill Hallman.
Right.
So we know that there is at least some higher function going on here when this guy's like, okay, I'm not going to be, if I can't survive, I have to take out the thing that's threatening me.
Yeah.
And it also would, well, I was going to say it also would possibly explain some of the complaints I have later on when he does take out Hallman, but actually it doesn't. So there's that. I like the lighting in this scene because it's really weird and expressive.
Yeah.
I like the hospital in general, but the thing that I really dig is that the lighting in the biohazard wing is like, it's really expressive and moody and arch, a lot of angles and a lot of weird colored lighting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like the Frankenstein story that's playing out within it. And most of the scenes with Kirby have that kind of lighting, really, kind of very harsh shadows and weird patterns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Kirby also moves into more realistically lit scenes, like the rest of the hospital. There are shadows, and there are some harsh shadows and layered lighting and things like that. But he moves very well in both environments, which I find really fascinating. And I think that's, partly a testament to the cinematographer, but also partly attributable, at least in my opinion, to Libby's performance.
Mm-hmm.
In this scene too, little thing, I like the clown doll hanging up above the sink in the background when they're fighting there and Vaughn's there eating his yogurt, which is a truly disgusting food, by the way. But in the background, there's this clown doll hanging over the sink. And I like that because it just feels lived in and weird. And it almost seems like a hint that we shouldn't take the movie entirely seriously.
Yeah.
Or it could be just a touch of reality it's thrown in to make the space feel more real and lived in and less melodramatic.
Right.
I love Stephen Keats' performance, though, especially in this scene. He just chews Ron Silver up and spits him out.
And I love yogurt, so kiss my ass.
Oh, God. I knew something I didn't like about you.
Charlie and Dan travel down the road, and Charlie tells this really weird story about cleaning a dirty puppy with toilet water, but not knowing what to do with it when it came to drying it off. So he put the dog in a deep freezer and then promptly forgot about him. His mother found the dog frozen in mid-bark.
What the fuck?
Charlie wonders if he should have put that on his application. Dan says it will not go down on his permanent record. What the fuck?
All I have to say to that is, dogs, bruh, we don't deserve them.
Oh, God damn it.
That's
God
two.
damn you.
Two in one double feature.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, I'm about to cut this short. I'm about to cut this real short.
This story is time filler.
Oh, yeah.
But first sells it so well.
Yeah.
And according to this interview with Michael Miller, the director from a few years back on comingsoon.net, that was First's own story that he had. I don't know if I guess it was like a childhood story or something, but he had this story and he always wanted to tell it in a movie, but it just never fit in anywhere. And so Miller told him to tell Norris in the car, and I don't think they rehearsed it, because if you watch Norris, his reactions are probably the most genuine in the entire movie, because he's just kind of like, what's coming next here?
Yeah.
So if you watch the movie again, I'd go back and watch it, because I don't think Chuck Norris knew what was coming. I think First just told him, and he's just like, what the hell? And so when he delivers his lines, like, I don't think that'll go on your permanent record. That's another thing where I'm like, yeah, it's a flat delivery, but it deserves a flat delivery, because he's kind of playing a straight man here, and so I think it works. I'm conflicted about the story in that I do think it's used to pad out the screen time on the sheriff's side of the story, because there's not much going on, but I do love how First tells it, and it's so darkly funny, and it displays how dangerously naive Deputy Charlie is.
Yeah.
And in a way, it makes him feel so simple that I take what happens to him later on even harder than I might have otherwise.
Right. They drive by a biker bar and see the choppers of the bikers from earlier. Oh, boy. Dan tells Charlie to go back to the bar. Charlie hits wet pavement and does a couple of 360s before skidding into the bar parking lot. Dan stares at him blankly, of course.
Of course.
Charlie feigns excitement about kicking some biker ass, but Dan tells him to settle down and follow his lead.
It's a dry Texas town with tumbleweeds and dust, and the one long wet spot on the street that the deputy needs to do a donut in his big boy blazer to get back to the bar. It's like,
right.
It's dry as far as the eye can see, and there's this long wet spot, kind of like Dan and Allison were fucking in the middle of the road.
Because we know when Chuck Norris ejaculates, he ejaculates buckets.
That's right. That's right. You can skid off of it. It's not sticky. It's slick.
That's right.
That's just from the steroids. I take your point, though, about Norris looking at him blankly once they come to a stop, but Jesus Christ, I'm glad they didn't give old Plastic Man a line there. I mean, the look's enough. Let's move on. You have a set piece to attend to,
Right, right.
Ooh.
Inside, the bikers are passing a woman around and licking beer off her exposed chest.
Beer that they literally pour over her entire body at the beginning of the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and they pass her around like she's in a mosh pit or something.
It's nuts.
Stupid. The mouthy biker from the diner is jumping around on the tables and acting like a monkey. Dan and Charlie enter, and Charlie goes into business for himself and screams.
You motherfuckers up against the wall!
Oh, my God.
That, of course, is met with jeers.
Yeah, right.
The biker boss asks if anyone had called the police, and they all say no. The biker mama from earlier baits Charlie and shows him her tattooed bosom. Charlie reaches out to touch them before Dan stops him and tells him to call for backup. As Charlie exits the bar, the bikers surround Dan for a tussle. The biker boss pokes Dan in the chest, but Dan spins him around into a chokehold, and, well, you know where this is going. Dan systematically takes out the entire biker gang as they come at him, one at a time.
The fuck?
There's strength in numbers, fellas. Meanwhile, Charlie's out on the truck CB telling the dispatcher operator about the boobies he just saw.
Fuck.
Oh, God. I quote, love that this entire scene was just a way of showcasing Norris's fighting ability, because it adds nothing to the story other than Dan is tough and Charlie's a bumbling idiot, which has already been established.
Yeah, and apparently a virgin.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. As I was saying earlier, you could cut this entire story out of the movie and it wouldn't suffer at all.
No.
But there is one singular moment I really like in the scene, and that's when the biker boss tells the bald biker to break Dan's back.
Yeah.
And they cut to a quick shot of the tattooed biker mama's face, the woman who was baiting Charlie. And her expression shows that she can feel the situation is going in a bad direction, and she's horrified that the bikers are about to try to cripple or kill Dan.
Right.
And that quick little moment made the scene so much better for me than it would have been otherwise. But I still think it's gratuitous, culminating with the boss biker riding his cycle partly through a plate glass window. I mean,
yeah.
Give me a fucking break, man. I mean, come on, you know?
Yeah.
And the fight scene's not even that good.
No.
It's one thing if the fight scene is just really fucking good, but this fight scene isn't really even all that good.
It's just edited kicks, right? It's just kick. And
yeah, and he gets knocked down and he does I think he does a couple of leg sweeps and shit like that, but
yeah.
I think he used a pool cue at one point. But the thing about it is that it's not very realistic at all, and it's also not like a ballet. So it just kind of falls into this region where you go, okay, well, that was a scene where, a sheriff kicked a bunch of people in the fucking face.
I'd rather a gritty bar fight than karate anyway, because I love karate. I respect karate. It's an art form. It's a great form of self-defense. But in a situation like this, I would just like a gritty bar fight, Yeah. I don't need Chuck Norris doing spin kicks, In this scene, it's like one guy taking on 15 guys, 20 guys or some bullshit like that. Yeah.
I'm like you, I want to see a gritty fight, but I also want to see the guy using the environment more,
Right.
And in this, you just don't, you get some of that, but you don't get it as much as you probably could. So,
right.
I think we spent too much time talking about it already. I've been doing most of the talking. I still feel like it's just been a waste of time.
Yeah. As Spires injects more serum into Kirby's arm, he tells Kirby, still presumably out on the table, that Hallman thinks he's Spires' experiment, but Spires says Kirby is his life's work on display. Dan's at home, shirtless and playing some yacht rock when Allison surprises him with a visit. She says she wants to start over with him. Why not? He says okay, and they have some marathon dirty sex. Yeah. We're going too fast. I don't want to do this with you. You know what? I actually do want to do this. No, I don't. You're not sleeping with you. Yes, okay, I'll sleep with you. Yeah, you stuck your finger in my ear. Why not?
I love the yacht rock. It's a time for love. It's just like, we can't license any other song on the fucking planet. Let's get this lady to sing this.
That's right. We couldn't afford Ambrosia, so.
Yeah, right. Toto's busy.
Afterward, he invites her to come to his cabin in the mountains for a couple days. He says they should leave tonight, and she excitedly accepts. Old Dan's done pretty well for himself as sheriff of this small town, hasn't he? He not only has his main house, which is a mini mansion on a mountain, but he also has a cabin in the mountains.
It's insane.
I understand these needs, as I too have multiple mountain homes. I also like to point out that we've hit the fighting and fucking quota for an 80s action movie already, and we're only about 48 minutes into this one. So if this movie's been anything so far, it's been a good salesperson.
Quantity, you've met the quota, but what about quality? How do we figure quality into that? Chuck Norris kisses like he's drinking a really thick milkshake through a straw. Just like
he's kissing a fish through a tank or something. Just, yeah. You're a good fish eater.
Like he stuck a vacuum up his ass.
Yeah. Oh, God. Hallman comes home to find his wife, Nancy, played by Stephanie Dunham, painting a picture. Ugh. She can tell that something has bothered him, but he doesn't want to trouble her with it. They appear to be a fun, loving couple, but we also discover that Allison lives with them. Stephanie offers to go pick up a pizza.
This is a solid character building scene.
Yeah.
It's actually a decent scene. Silver and Dunham have good chemistry, and it's always a plus to see good actors working scenes together,
Right.
Especially in this movie without having to weave a safety net for Chuck Norris, as he walks around.
Yeah. They're a believable couple. Their interaction's believable. It's just, I have a shitty day at work. I don't want to come home bug anybody with it either. Just kind of go about my business, even though they know I probably have something on my mind. So it's just, it's a believable scene.
As they're written, they're basically kind of like a late 70s idea of what intellectuals are.
Right.
Right? Like the idea of New York intellectuals transplanted to Texas, that's basically all they are. But they kind of transcend it. And one thing I find really kind of interesting, and I don't know if Silver added this or if it was in the script, but I'm assuming he added it. When she says, is it the John Kirby thing again that's bothering you? And he says, yeah. And he walks over and he says, John Kirby? John Kirby. Like, just, trying to lighten it up for himself and trying to, like, minimize it so that he doesn't go crazy. But at the same time, knowing that she doesn't even know the half of it, right? Like, is it the John Kirby thing? Yeah, honey, he's dead. But also, he's a crazed Frankenstein killing machine. Don't say that part, Holman, so yeah.
You can cut him and he heals within seconds. It's amazing, but it's also scary as shit.
Right. You set him on fire, he jumps in the pond and he comes back out all healed. It's weird, but it's really cool, but it's also weird.
Completely bricked my pants when he did that. Night falls and we see that Kirby is on the loose and outside of the Hallman home. Uh-oh. Doc Hallman is in his darkroom developing photos. Kirby lets himself in, grabbing a kitchen knife on his way. Hallman thinks he hears Stephanie returning and calls out to her. Kirby sneaks up behind Hallman and draws the knife. Hallman sees him and throws developer in Kirby's eyes and gives him the slip. Hallman runs through his darkened house, grabs a gun, and gives a warning to Kirby. Kirby jumps from the shadows and Hallman puts 2 slugs into his torso. A blood-spattered Hallman slumps to the floor, but Super Kirby pops back up and grabs Hallman by the throat. Hallman shoots Kirby in the gut. Thinking he finally got the best of Kirby, Hallman steps over his body, but Kirby wakes and grabs his leg, tripping him. Hallman loses the gun in the process. Uh-oh, Stephanie's home with the pizza. She finds Hallman dead on the floor and sees Kirby watching her. She runs upstairs crying and locks herself in the attic stairwell. A surprising turn of events, killing off Hallman mid-film. I love when someone who you think is a main player gets suddenly offed like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be cheap, but it's pretty effective here, I think.
Yeah, I think it is too. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Executive Decision.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers, but,
It's like a 30-year-old movie, but,
Right. This sequence, again, owes a lot to the original Halloween.
Right.
I like the shot of Stephanie hiding in the attic stairwell as Kirby walks away. And it's like you have that 2x4, the frame of the wall. She's like sunk back in there and half of her face is covered by that. And then the other half is just out and you see the emotion cycle through her face. That's really, really scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty good scene.
Yeah.
It's a decent sequence. But let's keep going because there are some things that don't make sense.
We see that Dan is en route to pick up Allison. Back at the Hallman, Stephanie gets all stupid and decides to come out of the closet. As soon as she exits, Kirby gives her the iron claw to the face and slams the back of her head into the wall, killing her instantly. Kirby looks at her with dark, dead eyes and no emotion, much like Norris does to this whole movie.
I mean, it's just so easy.
It is. Set him up, knock him down. Allison arrives at the Hallman home. She hurriedly strips, showers, gets dressed, and packs as Kirby naps somewhere else in the house. I guess he's napping. He's just like, he's dormant.
That's what I don't get.
Right.
I don't get it. What the fuck is going on?
Somewhere diddling his pickle, I guess. I don't know.
It's like, it's not all of me that's strengthened by the serum.
It still works. Finally, she finds Stephanie in the doctor's bodies and rightfully freaks the fuck out. She runs screaming out the front door and right into Dan's arms. As he comforts her, we see Kirby sneak out the back door and run into the woods like Repo Man from early 90s WWF. He's like,
ho, ho. The hat and the mustache are here.
So up to this point, Dan and Allison's storyline has only had 2 purposes in this movie. 1, to get bare breasts on the screen, and 2, to act as a catalyst to get to this very scene where the bodies are discovered. It could have been removed entirely, as we've already discussed, and it's as pointless as the biker bar scene, which also serves 2 purposes. 1, to get bare breasts on the screen, and 2, to show off Norris's fighting skills. I wish they'd spent more time focusing on the science and on Kirby's evolution, but I guess that wouldn't make for a very exciting 80s action movie.
Right. I didn't want to see Allison die, obviously.
Right.
But she's in this house forever. forever.
Right.
Like yelling and making all kinds of noise. But then she makes one little noise and Kirby suddenly perks up like my Cat Magnum when thunder cracks or when someone gets tape out of a drawer in the kitchen.
Right.
You know, like it's like,
The shower didn't alert him.
Yeah.
But whatever little noise she made did, I guess.
Right. And the thing, too, is that, like I was saying earlier, when Hallman said that he would be better off dead and his eyes pop open, I thought, well, that's when he's going to kill Hallman.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, once I said that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, then this scene, it makes more sense that he doesn't kill Allison. But I thought, well, wait a minute, he kills Stephanie.
Right.
He kills Hallman's wife. So the fact that it isn't targeted makes it make even less sense.
Yeah.
And they don't set up any kind of like rules. Like maybe if he suffers a certain amount of damage, he actually has to sleep or rest for his body to rejuvenate. They don't set that up. So it's not a factor then. Like if you don't tell the audience somehow, then it's just not a factor.
Right.
Kirby sneaking out behind them, like that's kind of a Halloween thing, you know, stuff happening in the background and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't understand why Kirby leaves either. Like, I don't understand why he leaves. Because he's invincible and he knows it. He's got two victims right there in front of him, but why doesn't he go after them?
Yeah.
You know, it's a neat sequence that, aside from Hallman being killed, the rest of it's kind of pointless. It's just for jump scares and stuff.
I guess in this situation, it would make more sense for him to send Allison back inside and for him to start chasing Kirby.
Right.
Back to the hospital even.
Right, exactly. And figure out, holy shit, like that is Kirby.
Yeah.
Like even if he doesn't see him in the dark, he's still chasing him and he finds out, holy fuck, that's John Kirby. What the hell is going on here?
Right.
And I also don't understand why Kirby hangs Hallman up on a back of a door in the house.
Right.
That kind of shit in these kind of slasher movies always bugs the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Why is Michael Myers stuffing somebody into an attic?
Right. Kills Dad out on the lawn and shoves him in the top of the closet.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Just leave him out on the lawn.
Yeah, and even more so for Kirby, because he's literally invincible. It doesn't matter if they find the bodies of people that he killed.
Right.
Because he could survive anything.
Right. The bodies are loaded into the meat wagon and Charlie takes Allison with him. Norris actually shows a little emotion on his face that says, I'm upset about these murders and the fact that I just got cock-blocked by the murderer.
You got a lot out of that look. Surprising.
Yeah. Back at the lab, the mad scientists have just discovered that Kirby has flown the coop. Spires exits the lab and finds Kirby on the other side of the door. He sees blood on Kirby's overalls and, oh boy. Charlie takes Allison to the hospital to get a sedative and take a nap on the break room couch. Dan arrives at the hospital and breaks the news of the murders to Spires. Spires asks who would do such a thing, and Dan asks about Hallman's other disturbed patients, ones like Kirby. Spires offers to collect Hallman's files for him in the morning. As Dan exits, Spires displays the I done fucked up face. Meanwhile, the doctors somehow have Kirby back on the examining table and sedated. Vaughn argues that there is a reason to be concerned about their bullet-riddled monster, but Spires remains in denial and is still marveling over his serum's effectiveness.
John killed him, right? Didn't he? I don't care if he murdered 100 people. We're scientists, we're not moralists. You know that we're all expendable. John Kirby is the future. Because of him, it's possible that millions of lives can be saved. Only if we could have perfected the process. But there's no time. I mean, nobody's going to give us a Nobel Prize for murder. That's how the world's going to see it. We could always terminate him. Not yet.
Spires exits to go check out Kirby's brain scans. Vaughn takes the opportunity to plunge a syringe full of sulfuric acid into Kirby's neck, and Kirby flatlines. Okay, so the sulfuric acid bottle has the word sulfuric acid written on the side of it in Sharpie, and it looks like it's written by an 8-year-old. It's like, hey, sulfuric acid. I like that Vaughn here straddles the line between having a conscience about the monster they created and just not wanting to get caught. He doesn't really seem to give a shit that Kirby killed people, including his colleague. He just doesn't want to be held responsible for it.
Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, he's probably the closest thing to an actual scientist in the movie, you know? Because many scientists who create horrible things build in these blind spots for themselves so they can avoid responsibility for some of the horrific uses that their inventions or breakthroughs allow to happen, you know?
Right.
Like Kirby doesn't necessarily present any ethical dilemma for Vaughn, you know, because he's just kind of like, well, I'm just eating my yogurt. Kirby just happens to be an experiment gone awry that Vaughn doesn't want to get his jail ticket punched for. So he's like, let's just, you know, my 8-year-old brought home this bottle of sulfuric acid from school. Let's just get that. I'll go ahead and, you know, I'll go ahead and clock him out with it.
They think he's dead anyway. Let's just go ahead and do that. Get it out of the way.
Yeah, let's do that.
In the electron microscope room, Spires looks through the scans and into the scope and mutters to himself. Meanwhile, Vaughn walks down the tunnel corridor between the biohazard wing and the Institute. He hears footsteps behind him. He turns to see Kirby's menacing silhouette at the opposite end of the hall. Kirby quickly moves toward Vaughn. Vaughn whips out another loaded syringe full of acid, but Kirby intercepts it and stabs it into Vaughn's neck. Which begs the question, why did he have another syringe? Is it just bad writing, or was he planning on killing Spires with it? Because it'd be difficult to explain, but he also wouldn't have to share that Nobel Prize that they both want so badly.
Well, I couldn't tell if it had liquid in it or not. But whatever the case, he would not have died as quickly as he did, with or without acid in the syringe. Like, Kirby stabs Vaughn, and Vaughn slumps to the floor dead, no blood and no squirming. Nothing. That ain't right. I mean, like, hey, you know, that was the cleanest fucking kill I've ever seen. I mean, we see blood later when Spires finds him, but still.
Right.
I love the cinematography here, the light and shadows, the way Kirby stands awkwardly, like almost crookedly in silhouette at the end of the hall.
Yeah.
After he walks down the ramp, and then, of course, the way Kirby runs in on Vaughn is, yet again, like, animalistic.
Yes.
It's just like this gorilla coming in, you know, so.
I can't wait till we get to that one scene coming up where Kirby's looking all animalist. Oh, my God,
yeah,
it was so cool.
It's so great.
Charlie's asleep outside the staff lounge when Dan emerges and said that he's going to the coroner's office. He wants the deputy to keep an eye on Allison, which is quite likely the worst idea since casting Chuck Norris as the star of this motion picture.
You know.
While looking through Kirby's records and scans, Spires has a breakthrough and runs to tell Vaughn about it. Charlie wanders around the lounge while Allison sleeps. He nearly opens the fridge for a snack until he sees the big yellow biohazard sign on the door. Spires finds Vaughn dead in the hallway and apologizes to his corpse. Then he runs off like a scalded dog. In the lounge, Charlie is play acting with his gun in the mirror like De Niro from Taxi Driver, but, you know, dopey and fun. Spires retreats to his office and guzzles scotch because that's exactly what you want your mad scientist to be doing right as his creation is running amok in the hospital. Kirby enters his office and Spires gloats about his achievements with Kirby. He can now take all the credit since Vaughn is dead. Kirby tries to speak but can only grunt. Spires walks up to him and puts his hands on Kirby's face in a loving gesture. Kirby returns the gesture and then lovingly snaps Spires' neck. Allison's awake now and Charlie's feeding her milk and chocolate chip cookies. Well, just milk. She's not into cookies, which might make her some sort of communist. Kirby comes out of an elevator and grabs the doctor, who's waiting on the lift, by the neck. The doctor screams and Charlie is on alert. He tells Allison to wait for him and she's all like, "Fuck you, pal, I ain't staying here by myself," and tags along. They see Kirby banging the doctor's head against the wall. Charlie pulls his gun and approaches Kirby. Kirby quickly gets the upper hand and puts Charlie into a bear hug. Charlie tells Allison to run as Kirby snaps the poor dummy's spine. Allison tries to wait for an elevator but decides to get her steps in and takes the stairs. Man, Kirby is like a classic old school wrestling heel. He does the Iron Claw, the bear hug. He should be in a tag team with Baron von Raschke.
They could be the German generals.
Yeah.
Kirby could be Johnny von Jockstrap.
Right.
Because he looks like an AWA heel, like a specifically AWA heel.
He does. Just like Raschke did too, yeah.
Exactly.
Dan talks to dispatch and discovers that chaos is ensuing all over town and that several alarms are going off at the hospital. Dan doesn't need 40 acres to turn this rig around. Allison is headed downstairs, but Kirby enters from the floor below and chases her back up. Allison ducks into a hallway and disappears behind one of a dozen different office doors. We get a long first-person shot of Kirby surveying the hallway and inspecting each door. He suspects she may be behind a door marked biohazard and begins to open the door, but then a doctor walks into the hallway from another office. He sees Kirby, and the killer descends on the horrified medical professional. Dan is back and finds the security guard dead. He then finds Charlie, who's still alive. Dan tries to comfort him, but Charlie dies in Dan's arms. Dan puts on his intense face and his cowboy hat and power walks down the hall. Allison was in the biohazard room. If this is Let's Make a Deal, Kirby would have won a new AMC Pacer. She quietly moves down a hallway and back into the stairwell and eventually runs into Kirby. Her screams alert Dan and he heads toward the action.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How small is the hospital? He's going to hear her screaming like 2 floors down, and he knows exactly which direction to run in. It doesn't make any sense.
That sounds like it was 2 floors up.
Yeah, that's 3 floors down and to the right and 5 halls the other way. Fucking ridiculous, man.
She must be in the lab. Allison runs into Spire's office and trips over the mad doctor's corpse. She falls onto the floor. Kirby finds her and crawls toward her like an animal in a rather chilling fashion, almost like he's toying with her. Dan finds him and unloads his 6-shooter into Kirby's chest. Kirby stumbles backward and falls out of the window, plummeting several stories to the ground. We see his body contorted with an arm behind him like he was a fallen Family Guy character. God, the way he was crawling and that look on his face was so animalistic.
Yeah.
Solid acting. He was frightening.
He was, and he turned his ear to her a little bit as if he's kind of like sizing her up and, well, what was that?
Yeah.
You know? Oh, he was so good. This whole sequence was pretty cool. I mean, logistics aside of like Dan knowing where Spire's office is, I don't even know if he's even been there.
Right.
I guess he had once. I don't know. Anyway, the logistics of it or whatever, but the lighting in here was so cool, man. Like, when we're in Kirby's POV and he looks down the hallway and you have like light where he is and then a hall of shadow and darkness and then like an exit sign and more light at the other end. I loved it. It was just so great.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just so beautiful. And different colored lights in some areas, like the lighting was a different temperature, different color. Really loved that. And I also like the visual of looking out the window and seeing Kirby contorted on the ground. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of calls back to the beginning when we were looking out a window at the house and seeing him do something, and it was surreal and odd.
Also another Halloween nod.
Yeah, absolutely right. At the end of the original Halloween. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's...
Never saw it.
No, Mike Miller never saw it. Fraley probably did, and DiLorenzo might have.
Outside, Dan approaches Kirby's body. He rolls the monster over, and I'll be damned, he's still alive. His eyes open, and he grabs Dan by the throat. They roll around on the ground with Kirby trying to choke Dan out. Allison gets behind the wheel of Dan's SUV, his lifted SUV. She lays on the horn to get Kirby's attention, floors it, and runs into Kirby, bouncing him off the front fender.
A hit that he just stands there and takes like an asshole. Just stands there and is like, huh, she's driving towards me. Huh.
Man, that takes some balls.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what getting hit by an SUV feels like. I mean, I'm going to get back up. It doesn't matter.
Dan hops in the passenger seat and Allison hits the gas. Kirby grabs the bumper and goes along for the ride. Kirby pulls himself up the back of the truck and into the conveniently open tailgate window. He crawls inside toward the couple. They both bail out of the driver's side door with the truck still moving, and Kirby tries to gain control of the vehicle. It hits a bump, goes airborne, rolls, and then Hollywood explodes. A flaming Kirby exits the vehicle, screaming, and jumps into a nearby pond. Dan walks up to the pond and Kirby surfaces, still alive and ready to tangle.
A flaming Kirby. That sounds dirty.
It does. It does. Some sort of Irish sex maneuver.
Yeah, I swear to God, officer, I just asked her for a flaming Kirby. I wasn't going to pay for it. You know? The one small issue I have with this scene was, how is the SUV going so fast? Because they had bailed out. Kirby's leaning over the front seat trying to grab the wheel to get control, but he can't reach the pedals. So apparently Dan's lifted ass SUV like idles at 60 miles an hour or something.
Yeah. Accelerator sticks.
Yeah, it was going really fast, but him getting out of the exploded SUV on fire and jumping into the pond was an incredible visual. And
yeah,
we talked about this earlier, I think either earlier in this discussion or in the one about Lone Wolf McQuade, that here when you see somebody do this, you know that somebody is on fire.
Right.
As a viewer, it's very tactile. You're watching it and you can just kind of feel it more than if you see someone who is on fire digitally.
Right, definitely.
And then the shot of Kirby rising out of the pond, that's probably my favorite moment in the entire movie, or at least one of them.
Yeah.
It's like even the first time you see this, you know he's coming back up, but it's still really cool and really unbelievable. Yeah. You know, it's just
right.
You know he's going to come up. It's just a matter of when. And, you know, Norris is too awful of an actor to muster an appropriate response, so he just shakes his head kind of like, good old Kirby. That's classic Kirby, dadgummit. But
Dan grabs Allison's hand and they take a leisurely run through the woods with Kirby on their heels. The killer catches up to them at a dirt patch clearing with a boarded over well. Dan tries to get Allison to flee while he holds Kirby at bay, but she ain't leaving. Dan and Kirby circle each other in a fighting stance. Hot shit!
Finally!
It's time for some karate, son! I didn't know how much of the finally you were going to do there, so but I couldn't help but laugh at it. So.
It's fun. It's fun to...
Finally!
It's like the most satisfying finally that he ever blurted out, you know.
Just resounding.
And it's like, and he gets into it with the F, like,
finally!
So perfect.
Love it.
That might go into the permanent rotation. I don't know.
It probably should.
We'll probably get sued, but...
Well, if you haven't been sued yet, I think we're okay.
Yeah,
so.
probably.
Yeah. Fucking YouTube. While Dan is prepared to fight in an elegant tiger style, Kirby's fighting style is more like a methed up gorilla. Instead of punches and kicks, he just throws Dan around like Samsonite. Dan starts to get some offense in, but Kirby proves to be too powerful. Kirby throws some haymakers, but Dan ducks them all and hits Kirby with 2 big roundhouse kicks to the face. Dan drags an addled Kirby over to the well. He tries to dump the big lummox into the water hole, but Kirby reverses and attempts to repay the favor. Allison gets involved and jumps on Kirby's back. Dan slides into the well but hangs onto the rim and pulls himself back out. Dan sprints from the well and hits Kirby with a spear, by God! Kirby goes down and Allison flies off the monster's back. Man's got a family. Mr. Indestructo is staggered, so Dan blasts him in the face with a flurry of lefts and rights and then picks up the Goliath in the fireman's carry and launches him through the remaining boards and into the well, just like... Oh, God.
Your time is up, my time is now.
We're going to keep going, huh?
No, I don't remember how long. Oh, there it is. Okay.
That was John Cena's music for the uninitiated.
Oh, Jesus. Are we explaining things now? Or this this far into the fucking movie. It's almost over.
Woo! All right. It's a very deep well, like 5 full seconds of falling deep. We finally hear Kirby crash at the bottom. It's over, says Dan. Of course it is. He and Allison walk away as the camera pans down the walls of the moss-covered well. At the bottom, we get a jump scare of Kirby's face coming out of the water, and the credits roll.
So what'd you think, buddy?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
I did. It's if it wasn't for Norris, it'd probably be a whole lot better, but it was still a really cool movie.
You know, I'm just thinking right now, if this had been made differently in 1982, Kurt Russell would have been amazing as Dan Stevens.
Oh, you damn right he would be.
I know that we're not at Remake of Rembrandt yet, but now I'm thinking about that, and now I'm kind of mad.
Right.
I wasn't mad before, but now I'm a little mad.
Also not the most charismatic actor, but Charles Bronson would have been good too.
Yeah, I think Bronson would have been good. I mean, I think Bronson's a better actor than Norris.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's still kind of one note, though.
Yeah, he is. I'm trying to think of who else would have been good in that part at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Reynolds wouldn't have worked, really.
No.
Like, if we were to go back and recast and just start all over.
Yeah.
I feel like Kurt Russell would be the Dan Stevens.
Yeah.
And that's not just the podcast talking, you know, like that's,
right.
You know,
right.
Thinking about the people at that time, I don't really know of anybody else who would have fit this mold.
Right. He's a quality actor. The line he would have played off of the other characters really well. Stephen Furst, that would have been really good.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
man,
yeah.
him and Stephen Furst together, that would have been incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he would have picked up on the oddness of Spires quickly and not just stared at him blankly. So
yeah, and you know, he would have also been able to play kind of like the mannerly sheriff, but then also being able to suss out the bullshit. Because I think that like Norris can play manners because they don't require any acting really. You know?
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, okay, great. I thought that was the coroner's job, but all right. God, that sounded like Ronald Reagan. Sorry. Got to get out of the 80s, man.
Yeah.
But Peter Bernstein and Mark Goldenberg's score is incredible. Before we get too far away from that score that we just played, it helps set the tone for this movie so well that when I think of the movie, the score is the first thing that comes to my head. Kirby rising out of the water is the second, and then the blurry freeze frame at the end is the third.
Right.
And I have been forced within these last two movies here to point out the things that come to mind when I think of them, because I realize, especially in the case of Lone Wolf McQuade, it's a personal affront to my dignity and an embarrassment to know that movie so well. You know, like, it's just a terrible, terrible fucking movie. This movie is...
We're just slowly killing your childhood one movie at a time.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And my childhood is not like John Kirby. It's never coming back.
Right.
But it's really too bad that there weren't sequels. I think that the idea was that they were supposed to be sequels, but I guess from what Michael Miller said, Chuck Norris didn't like this movie at all, so the sequels just never came about.
Right.
I would have been cool with them making sequels that didn't involve Chuck Norris.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Dan Stevens character at all. In fact, I would have preferred it. It would have been really fascinating to see what they would have done. And obviously a movie like this with an unstoppable killing machine is popular because, you know, a couple of years later we had The Terminator.
Right.
And this movie did reasonably well, too. I mean, when people look back on Chuck Norris's movies, this is one of the ones that a certain brand of Chuck Norris fan will go, oh, yeah, that was a great movie.
Right.
So, I mean, Chuck Norris always says that Code of Silence is his best film. And, you know, I rewatched that movie recently, and it's just a case of great actors around him trying to prop him up. And there's just, you know, there's just a few more names in that movie than there were in this movie. That's pretty much it.
Story of his career.
Yeah. Otherwise, he comes on screen and the whole movie goes snooze, you know? So,
right.
He only did one other movie that kind of had a supernatural bent. I didn't even care to remember the name of because it sucked.
Yeah.
So it's time right now.
Finally!
For Remake of Rembrandt.
Yes. Oh, man, keep that one at the ready at all times. That's wonderful. I love it.
So, Remake of Rembrandt.
I say we remake that motherfucker.
I think so too.
So you got a solid story, just tighten the script up, give Allison more to do, and I think we got something there. I think you could go one of two ways with it. You could either do like a gritty art house type of action movie or like a lighthearted grindhouse homage, but I think I'd rather see gritty.
Yeah.
And I think you keep it in the South because, in my opinion, everything is more interesting in the South. It's just the atmosphere of the South and the culture of the South is better for these sorts of things, I think.
Yeah, I could see that.
You got a killing machine running around the city. That's kind of boring. You know, you had Terminator for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I feel like if you went the avenue of the grindhouse homage, that stuff tends to get goofy really fast.
Yeah.
And I know there's someone out there, some smarty pants SOB is out there saying, well, you're talking about a movie where a Texas sheriff takes on an indestructible man. I know, it's goofy, but hear us out here. Some of the stuff that you see that's grindhouse homage, like Hobo with a Shotgun or something like that, they're too arch and too kind of just weird and goofy. And I don't mind that, but I don't want to see this movie do that.
And they play to a very particular audience. They don't make money.
No.
You know, so if you're going to do it, you know, put some money behind it and do an honest to God version of it.
Yeah, honestly, like I would like to see somebody like, well, after seeing the Halloween remake, David Gordon Green, I think would be.
I agree.
He probably would not do it because he did Halloween, you know.
Right.
But I mean, even before Halloween movies, he was doing like Undertow, which I think Undertow was also set in the South, you know, in this kind of weird version of the South that's kind of blown out. And
yeah,
I think he does that kind of work very well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this is going to be kind of a weird comparison, but stick with me here for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of what you say about this movie being like a gritty art house type film, the thing that I think of is that moment in House of a Thousand Corpses when the sheriff is on his knees and
the crane
shot, and it sits there and it sits there and it sits there until Otis, I think maybe, or whoever pulls the trigger. That aesthetic in that moment is what this remake should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who would you cast in it? Because I don't have any ideas as far as casting or anything.
Well, sticking with directing for a second, though, I also like Cary Fukunaga for this, too. He's the guy that did the first season of True Detective.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he'd do a great job on it. And I also like Jerry Saulnier, too. He did Blue Ruin and Green Room. So
yeah.
I think either one of them could knock it out of the park as well.
In thinking about directors, though, too, one guy that I think of is this guy named Todd Rohal, who made this movie called Guatemalan Handshake. And he kind of has that aesthetic, kind of that southern backwoods type thing that's tense, but can also almost seem a little bit laid back in a way. Like, I feel like in some ways this movie needs to be recalibrated so that you have a little more tenseness in it in parts and a little more urgency in parts, but also in the laid back parts, instead of like seeing the tone try to be laid back and comedic, like actually lean in and actually be laid back so that things feel more natural.
Right.
And I feel like a person like Todd Rohal would do that, or David Lowery, the guy who did A Ghost Story, and I think he just did that Green Knight movie, maybe.
Yeah.
But Ghost Story is fantastic, and I think Lowery would probably do a really good job with this movie, because there's another movie that...
He might, but he's all about slow pacing, and this movie, I think, was paced really well, as it was with the original.
Yeah.
Because, like, Green Knight is slow as fuck.
Yeah, but he also did Old Man and the Gun.
Oh, that's true. That's a good one.
Which was a well-paced movie. So, I mean, I think he's very adaptable. He made this short called Pioneer, which is like one of the greatest shorts I've ever seen. And it's just Will Oldham telling this bedtime story to his son, and there's sound design, but you never leave the bedroom. There's just all the sound design. And as it goes on, you start to believe what Will Oldham is saying, how he looked for this kid for hundreds of years and he finally found him and all this kind of stuff. You start to believe it's true as well, you know? So somebody like David Lowery, I think, can get you as a viewer to buy into what he's talking about. Because on its surface, like a ghost story seems nuts.
Right.
But then you watch it and you're just like, holy fuck, like this is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm still a David Gordon Green guy.
Oh, yeah.
I think he should probably be the guy to do it if it were going to be done. But yeah, I don't know that he would do it because of Halloween. So
never know. He's such a versatile director.
Have you ever seen his first movie, George Washington?
I feel like I did, but that was so long ago, probably 20 years ago.
So fucking good. Like that movie and then his second movie, All the Real Girls, just both fantastic movies.
Yeah.
Just excellent, excellent movies. And, you know, the comedy stuff that he does, I like, but I like when he does things that are surreal and poignant and Undertow is a little more conventional, but it's still darker and it kind of infuses humor into like a dark story, which is what they tried to do here, right? I mean, they tried to do it here.
Yeah.
It just didn't always work.
Right.
But so let's talk about casting. What do you have for casting?
You know, I feel like I've cast him in other things that we've recasted in the past, but to me, I think he's just one of the best going right now. He's not as charming or as charismatic as Kurt Russell, I don't think, but he's still a great screen presence, especially in movies like this. And Josh Brolin, I think as Dan would be a great choice.
Perfect.
For his size and his intensity, I would love to see Michael Shannon as Kirby.
Wow. Yeah.
Shannon's an imposing figure, you know, and he is super intense.
Yeah.
If the part for Allison is better, I say, you know, one of our favorites, Rebecca Hall, as Allison. That would be nice.
I love Rebecca Hall.
I do too. For Spires, I'd watch this guy in anything. Walton Goggins, I think, would be great as Spires.
That would take some convincing for me, but I could see it.
Yeah.
You know, oddly enough, this is going to be real shallow and superficial on my part. Just put a pair of glasses on him, and I think I could buy him as Spires.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just that, because he can do it.
He does have sort of a goofy look, but he's got the intensity, you know?
Yeah.
Justified was proof enough of that for me. He's got the intensity.
Oh, yeah. No, he's got the intensity. There's no doubt about that. I think, though, sometimes Goggins can lean in to a character who is intense, but maybe not like the most intelligent person in the world, and really find the meaning in that person. So it would be interesting to kind of see him go the other way and play somebody like Spires. Although I do say this, I think that there's also a case to be made for Goggins to play Charlie, the deputy.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't even think about casting Charlie, actually. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. So I don't know. But, you know, Goggins has kind of played that character in one form or another before, kind of. So I don't know.
And for Dr. Hallman, Kurt Russell.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's got to make it in here somewhere, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we're not going to make him Sheriff Dan Stevens, for God's sakes.
I think he's a little too old to play Dan Stevens at this point, but I think he could do Dr. Hallman pretty easily. I think that's a home run.
Yeah, I think he could too. Man, that's good casting, dude. Top to bottom.
Thanks a lot, man.
Michael Shannon, yeah. Have you ever seen, there's this movie that he did with Werner Herzog called My Son, What Have You Done?
Where he's taken his mother hostage, is that what it is?
Yeah, he has the samurai sword. It's based on a true story.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
He's super intense in that fucking movie. I mean, he's intense in everything, but he's a different, weird kind of intense in that movie that I think would fit here really well.
Oh, yeah. I think of his intensity in Bug. I don't think I've ever seen anyone that scared me that much on screen, just being naturally intense and not going for like some weird supernatural, scary killer sort of thing. Like he was just, his intensity in that movie was just off the charts.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it. I really don't. Yeah, you got to get yourself to a really weird place to be that intense, I think.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about that movie too was that it really depended on him and Ashley Judd at a certain point, because since it was based on a stage play, it pretty much just took place in one location.
Yeah.
So you had to buy them and you had to be with her as she was buying into what he was talking about. That's why I think it would be really interesting to see him in this, because in this, he has to get us to buy into this character without saying a word.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see him do a performance like that. Not because I don't want to hear him talk, but just because...
Oh, he could do it.
He could totally do it. Even if you look at something like, what was that movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Seth Rogen, The Night Before?
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Shannon's part in that. There are times when he's there and he just has this look and you think, is this guy going to kill this kid, like in the car who's with him right now? It's like, he's going to kill him or what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And at the end, when you find out what he really is, you're just like, well, of course. Now I have to go back and rethink the entire movie because he was given one thing, but you could totally see both sides of his character. He's such a great actor.
Isn't he dressed like Jesse Pinkman in that movie?
A little bit, yeah.
Like stocking cap and kind of like, you know, like the guy that wears a basketball jersey year round, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. But he's like the Jesse Pinkman that you'd like want around, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, your casting of Rebecca Hall, though, as Allison, man, I mean, that kind of casting would demand that part be better.
Oh, God, yeah. That's why I preface it by saying if the part's better, I would want her for that. Because if the part is exactly what it is in the original version, screw it.
I think it would be cool if you had Hallman and Allison and they were both doctors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or like instead of being a brother to Allison, Hallman's her father. If you're casting Kurt Russell,
yeah,
then him being Rebecca Hall's father would be great. And oh God, every time her name comes up, I just think of Christine. Have you seen Christine, that movie?
Yeah.
She's so fucking good in that movie.
That's an amazing movie. What if her character in this was kind of a hybrid of Allison and Vaughn, where she's stuck between the two?
Oh.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
She's in love with Dan, but Hallman's her father, but she's really devoted to the science, so she's kind of devoted to Spires all at the same time. So it's like a vicious square in this case.
Yeah. I mean, it gets a little more entangled. But I think, I think one of the keys to like breaking the spine of this script is trying to reconcile the coincidence that Sheriff Dan Stevens just so happens to be an ex of someone who's related to the doctor who is, you know what I mean? Like the town's small, but it's not that fucking small. So, you know, that's the only thing you'd have to reconcile.
Or she doesn't have to be related at all.
She doesn't have to be, or, you know, something too, she doesn't have to be in love with Dan. I mean, like, it could be something at the beginning of the movie where once she figures out what's going on, she's the one who steps out and wants to help him.
Right.
Try to resolve this or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think once you start thinking about this movie and all the flaws in it, I think that it becomes a fundamentally different movie when you start to try to remake it. But I think the core story there, the Frankenstein story mixed with the sheriff, that whole thing, and the indestructibility of the monster, I think all that stuff mixes together in a way that even if the plot points and the character relationships aren't exactly the same, it's still really interesting.
Yeah.
So, get it done. We got to get the president of Hollywood on the phone and have her to get this. Just tell her, say, look, finally, put this into production.
Oh, that's never going to get old. That will never, ever get old to me.
Oh,
woo. Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, great.
Oh, man. That's it.
We've once again saved the box office for 2022. We're doing it all here for free.
Man, after we talk that remake out, I want to see that.
I do too.
Yeah.
We got to get 60 monkeys in a room with 60 typewriters and get them start to typing. Maybe in 3,000 years, they will have it done.
Hey, Woodsworth, get on that, will you?
Yeah, right. Right.
Put something together for us.
Yeah, Woodsworth, we're going to need a complete lookbook and an outline by next week.
That's right. That's right. We have no money to finance this, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find like a well-to-do dentist or something that'll furnish a little bit of money.
It's always a well-to-do dentist. It's always a dentist. You know, it's always an artisan of the teeth that will come through.
That's right.
You know, a man of the tooth comes through with the funds. All right. Well, that's it. I mean, we've come to the end of this Chuck Norris double feature. The first half was arduous. It was like watching a chimp trying to fuck a football. This second movie was better.
Much.
And knew exactly what it was. And so that's fun.
Yes.
I think it's going to peter out, kind of like Chuck Norris's performances. I think this episode is going to kind of...
Yeah, this is the part where I fall asleep.
Yeah. This is the part where I say, I think we're done recording, and you're like, finally!
Yay!
Yay!
Oh. Thank you for joining us at the All Night Drive-In Picture Show. We hope you enjoyed our double feature this evening. You can follow us on social media at the All Night Drive-In Picture Show page on Facebook or at All Night Drive-In on Twitter and Instagram. If you have questions, comments, you can send them to our email address at allnightdriveinpictureshow@gmail.com. We appreciate your patronage. Don't forget to hang up your speaker, and please drive carefully on your way out.
The All Night Drive-In Picture Show is edited and produced by Markham Harvey. Our theme song is composed and performed by Lee Rosevere and edited by The Night Watch. Our head ticket taker is Stubbs Jorgensen. Our sign master is Jason Baldwin. Our snack bar manager is Lucy Slewfoot. Our animal wrangler is Gerard Mantooth. I'm your announcer, Lane Hewitt. I'm as Vero as a billy goat. This has been a Clown Business Coalition production. Good night, everyone.